Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again,
you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all dissidents. Thank you for being here on this Thursday night edition of the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss here. Russell Dobular, after the release of that Menachem Dobular video, he is currently in hiding. He had to go away for a little while. Got some people who we got on the wrong side of, but he will emerge when it is safe. In the meantime, I do want to introduce to you our co-host for the evening and press secretary for the Extra Bullet 2024 campaign. You all know who she is. Here's Tusker. Tusker, thanks for joining.
Courage.
Yes, you're off to a good start. No, Russell actually is doing a 3-day-long tour. Yes, he is okay, Harpoon. Thank you for asking. Yes, he is fine. He is just doing a 3-day-long tour. So he is working right now. It's one of those massive gigs that you can't get out of. That happens during spring break season a lot in New York City. You know, you have big charter groups come in and they book you, 14 hours a day, 3 days in a row. So he is on the clock right now, but he is doing pretty well. But Tusker, it's great to see you again. Thank you for joining us. How are things? You had a busy week too, you were telling me.
Yes, I did. So, I think I work in healthcare. I work in a cath lab. So whenever you have a heart attack, whatever. This weekend, they kicked our butts. For the 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, we worked a total of 25 hours over 2 days. So I've basically not had a day off for I think this was my 13th day going.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Well, thank you for making the time for us tonight. We knew about this.
For the dissident.
Yeah, this will be fun. I mean, little did you know this was going to be a very eventful show, but it really is quite the eventful show. We obviously had to move some things around. We have a couple of guests who are going to be joining us as the show progresses. But please, if you are in here, please hit that like button. And please hit that subscribe button. Some of those in the chat did make mention of the fact that we crossed the 8,000 subscriber threshold, so we are well on the way to 10. This is very great news for America. This means that the Extra Bullet campaign is off to a really, really great start. Since we announced that we are supporting Extra Bullet for president in 2024, we've had about 400 new subscribers. And you know what that means. That means the establishment is really freaking out right now, right? They are really panicking in the halls of the DNC. They see that Extra Bullet is driving subscriptions to our YouTube channel, which means they're really afraid. So we have to keep it up here, guys, because we have a real opportunity, right? As they say, real opportunity here.
We have a real opportunity to have a crack pipe for every home in the United States of America.
Yes, and you can all start by subscribing to the DueDissidence YouTube channel, because that's really how it all happens. That's how it all happens. Abiding71, thank you for getting us started with 99 cents. We appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. Tip jar is out. Contributions do help us tremendously. We had a few new Patreon subscriptions this week, which was very helpful. You guys are going to get your shout out. Bulla 2024. Here we go. The endorsements are rolling in. Bulla's in the chat right here as well. You're welcome. Oh, no. I'm doing this for you, sir. I'm doing this for you, sir. All I ask in return is that you help us get to 8,000. Yeah, but we are going to change the world one YouTube subscription at a time. Very, very important that we're all on board for that. Anyway, we had a couple of segments that we were going to plan. We had one Trump DeSantis segment that we were going to do, but I feel like we really can't do that one tonight. We're going to have to give that the old scratcheroo, because obviously the big news, which broke just a couple of hours ago, is that Donald Trump has broken history and become the first president or former president to be indicted by a grand jury. This is NPR reporting, of course, just to get everybody up to speed, as they say, the accusations. The grand jury was examining evidence that Trump falsified business records to cover up hush money payments. Prominent Republicans have urged Trump supporters not to protest, but Manhattan is still braced for possible demonstrations. Those same Republicans have questioned the legitimacy of DA Alvin Bragg's probe, with a House committee threatening to investigate the DA's office. And yes, Trump can totally still run for president, and he says that he plans to do so. The big question is, how will this affect his presidential run? And it really is. I mean, you feel strange saying this, but it really is an open question. Like, it really is difficult to tell, I think, just how it's going to affect his run. I think a lot of it depends on when this trial is going to take place, because they can hold this over his head through the entire primary. What if the trial is not for a year? That means basically almost, not all, but more than half of the primary states will have voted by this time next year, which means you could have certainly Super Tuesday take place not knowing whether Trump is going to be found guilty or not. I suspect this is going to be a very, very difficult case to prove. I'm obviously on the record saying I think this is a mistake. But Tusker, I'll give you your first opportunity of many tonight to get yourself into trouble. So what do you think about this? You really picked a hell of a night to do this.
I know,
just
right?
How it worked out.
Thanks, Russ.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Well, good news is you have a real job. So the worst that can happen is, you'll just have to, take a hiatus from the chat for a while. But, you won't get totally canceled.
No,
You'll be fine. I'm joking, obviously.
Right, obviously. Well, like I said, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, whenever we were first kind of batting this about. And I think that, whatever, it's hush payments for like Stormy Daniels, it has something to do with that. And so they're lumping that into sort of like a campaign finance type thing. And
they wanted her to keep her mouth shut, right?
Fucking parakeet. Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that kind of thing.
I can't. I guess it's just, I think it's really a shame considering how many other presidents have essentially paid hush payments to other people. They've done dastardly things through the party mechanisms. I just think it's a shame that it's only Trump that's getting this. But I wouldn't expect anything other than that. The establishment fears Trump. And I think it's mostly just because he's unpredictable. What do you think, Keaton?
No, I think that's more or less right. And I think the stakes are especially high now that they have their war in Ukraine that they've wanted for a long time, that Trump didn't give them, which was the real reason why they hated him. And I know there are people who push back and say, well, he was hawkish on Russia too. Yeah, that's true. But, I've made this point before. New York real estate guy that he is, he knew, how far he can push things without blowing the deal, right? Without disturbing the peace, right? When you are in real estate, your goal is to fuck the other guy on the other side of the deal. Your goal is to fuck them as hard as you can, but you can't fuck them so hard that they get up and walk away. You need them to sign on the dotted line. And that seems to be the way that he handled this. And to the extent that he was hawkish on Russia, he seemed to be hawkish on Russia under tremendous pressure from the media and the Democrats and the permanent state, who were determined to prove, even though they couldn't because it wasn't true, that he was an agent of the Russian state. And so that set in a certain paranoia. And I'm sure that steered a lot of his more hawkish moves there as well. But it's quite obvious that he was one of very few people in Washington, D.C. over the past 30 years, I'd argue, who didn't want this. And now that they have the ball rolling, they just can't have him back. And so I think you're right. And look, this was true from the minute Trump took office, right? There was that little window between when he was elected and when he was sworn in, where we thought, okay, maybe this will lead to this new sort of enlightenment, this new sort of wave of mass political consciousness where we finally start holding the powerful responsible for all of their crap. But it became clear almost instantly that wasn't going to be the case. That, we talked about this with Matt Taibbi last week, where it's like, for all the legit things they could have gone after him for, they had to make up a bunch of things to go after him for, because a lot of the more legitimate crimes, right, the more legitimate investigations would have uncovered dirt on them and their own as well as him. And so I think that was a huge part of that.
Yeah. And I would just have to say, as much as I want big money out of politics and elections and all that stuff, I just think about like the crimes of other presidents, let's just even consider the 2008 bailout with Obama. How many millions of Americans lost their homes, lost their livelihoods, lost all of that? You have the bombing and destruction of Libya, which now has an open slave market. That seems to be a pretty big crime. And this one, the campaign finance stuff. Okay, go for it. But this is how the establishment is choosing to litigate this, and I think it will backfire on them. I think that it will ultimately energize his base. And I think, as far as because I kind of agree with you and Russell as far as where the DeSantis winds are blowing, I think that this is a boon for Trump.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's definitely a boon for Trump in the short term. He's going to get, a sympathy pull for this. The question is going to be a year out, depending on where this goes, and how many more charges there are coming down the pike, because there's no reason to believe that this is everything. In fact, if they bump this up to a felony, which I believe they have, that suggests there might be another one, because the only way you can charge someone for a felony for this kind of crime is if it was done to conceal another crime. So they may have evidence of something else that this hush money was related to in some way. Like I said, that's all speculation at this point, but there is reason to believe that. And I think 1 year down the road, the question that Republicans are going to be asking is it worth it? Is it worth going into a general with a candidate with this much baggage on him? If it is, if they think Biden is weak enough where they can beat him anyway, they might just go with Trump. If they're feeling a little more cautious, they might go with Tiny D, right? I mean, so it's, that really is where it's going to come down to me. I don't think we can know for sure right now how it's going to play out. I think you're right. Absolutely, Trump will get a short-term boost out of this. I think there's no question about it. But I think 1 year down the road, I think, once people's emotions are a little bit cooler, I think they're going to start to think, hey, is it worth it? Taking a gamble, going all in on this guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely not worth it as far as my sanity and my Twitter feed, because it's just going to be nonstop, just like Trump, and all the shit libs coming out and doing all that stuff just constantly for the next couple of days. If they actually do arrest him, that'll be another thing. It'll be on Time magazine, every magazine plastered, everywhere. I'm not looking forward to it, just because I so don't care in a lot of ways. Knee-grow. I see what you did there. You almost got me canceled by reading that. But it's a cult Keaton. No, you see what I'm saying? That's what he's going for, right? It's a cult Keaton. They'll go for orange no matter who. Well, the thing about that is, DeSantis is starting out in the mid-30s, right? So, he's starting out pretty good for a guy who's going to have to, essentially primary a president, because Trump, was a one term, and now he goes into it, obviously the front runner. So, for an underdog, he's going into that, with a fairly substantial base of support. He doesn't have that much ground to make up if you're already polling in the mid-30s. So I don't know if it's fair to say that it's all a cult. If it were a cult, he'd be polling at 90, right? I mean, that's not to say Trump doesn't have a cultish base of supporters, but I think that's different from saying that the entire Republican Party voter base is this cult of Trump, because turns out now, even now, Trump is straddling, the 50% margin, and, DeSantis is in the 30s, and then you have those handful of others polling in single digits there. All right, excellent. Okay, so we are going to get into our first kind of segment that's not related to that, but let's take some super chats first. You guys are off to a very generous start there. Patrick Donahue, thank you so much. You're using your, I will say, American name tonight, I believe, right? I think you are from Ireland, and you gave me a little bit of criticism about how I pronounce your Irish name, but you're using Patrick tonight, so thank you. Channel now on 8K subs, congrats. Well, thank you. How did the channel start? How were you friends before the YouTube channel? Whose idea was it? All right, well, thank you, sir, for the questions. I'll give you the very short version of that. Russell and I have only met in person twice. We were actually not friends before the channel started. We actually met as mutual friends of someone who we were both Facebook friends with, a real, Hillbot type.
And during the 2016 campaign, Russell and I would just end up, not in any coordinated fashion, but we would end up piling on his Facebook wall when he would post something dumb. We would jump all over him for it. And we noticed we would like each other's comments and reply and add to each other's points. So that's how we met just on Facebook. And then I started this as a blog and podcast project in March 2019, just about 4 years ago. In fact, I opened the channel on St. Patrick's Day of 2019, but we hardly posted anything to YouTube for the first few years. We were just doing audio and we were doing written pieces. And then I would say about a year and a half ago, we started posting more frequently to YouTube, but we've really only been serious about maintaining a YouTube presence for, I would say, the last 6-7 months, really, since the summer. That's when we really got started. Yep, that's it. It was my idea. I ended up inviting Russell to contribute written articles, and then I would invite him on to the podcast to sort of talk about those written articles, and that is how we sort of became a team, because after a while it became clear that we were a good team on the mic, and so here we are. Thank you, Patrick. Red Z. Today's safe word is never mind. Please continue. Yeah, there we go. Exactly. We should come up with one for every show. It's a good point. Pierre, 499. So do you think it's a mistake because of the nature of the case or because he shouldn't be indicted for political reasons? I don't know how you feel about that, Tusker. I would say both. I think it's definitely a political prosecution, and I also think it's going to be an extremely difficult case to prove in court, because can't he just say he was doing it to protect his family, right? I mean, is there any way to prove he wasn't? That it seems like a very difficult case to win outright beyond a reasonable doubt. So I'd say for both those reasons, I think it was the wrong move. What do you think about that, Tusker?
I mean, it like I've said before, it's not that I'm fine with all of our previous presidents going to prison. I'm 100% fine with that. I just don't think it's going to happen with the current system that we have. And so I see this very much as a political prosecution, which we'll see how that plays out in the long run. If the empire is concerned about polarization at home, this is certainly not helping the empire's empire building by further skewing people and polarizing the population. So I think overall they're probably damaging themselves by doing it.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Cool Blue, let's reelect Trump just so New York and nationwide Democrats' heads will explode. Yes, you've said that before, like the scene in David Cronenberg's 1981 film Scanners. All right, well, it's funny. I've never actually seen Scanners. I've seen a bunch of Cronenberg stuff, but I've never seen that one. But I will look that up to get your reference.
It's been a long time, but it's good. From what I remember.
Yeah, no, I love his stuff generally. I don't think I ever got around to seeing that one. Trump indictment, fastest way to make him more popular and increase his media coverage, and they'll lose the case. Good job. Yeah, I think you may be onto something there, Courtney, and thank you very much for the donation. David Young, expert pundit Chris Rock is right. Did he say something about the effect that it'll help Trump become more popular? I'm not up to date on that, but I think Chris Rock is a pretty astute observer of society, and so if he did say that, then yes, I do think he's onto something there as well. Thank you, David. Long story short, didn't Trump rent out an empty floor of one of his hotels to the Saudis? That isn't a violation. Why are Michael Bloomberg's NDAs considered violations? Yeah, the other stuff, like all that stuff, I'm not sure what the jurisdiction is on that. I know, this was a New York case, so that's why, it was handled this way by a New York DA. As for the other stuff, I'm obviously not sure who would be overseeing that. Obviously, federal cases would be decided by the executive branch ultimately. That's why all that pressure was on Merrick Garland for so long to get this done, and he didn't. And now Alvin Bragg is the new hero on their side. But thank you, long story short. Pierre, if feds have a solid case against Hunter, would you support not indicting during campaign season for political reasons? I'm sure GOP would receive that very calmly. Well, I mean, look, that's an interesting point. I would say the Hunter Biden materials are much more connected to what is going on in the world right now than hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, right? If there were corrupt dealings between Hunter Biden and Ukraine, and his father, then vice president, was getting a piece of the action, and now his father, current president, is funneling tens of billions of dollars at a clip out the door to Ukraine to fund a war that could go nuclear. I think that's quite relevant, right? So I think it's a bit of an apples and oranges thing, but I do take your point. And look, I'm not opposed to indicting Trump if there was a serious offense there that warranted it and you had the evidence to win the case. Like I said, I think it was even your question, I believe, that you asked earlier. Yes, so thank you for the other $10. I don't think they have that here. So that's where I come down on that. All right, I'm going to flag these other super chats. We're going to get to them a little bit later because we got plenty of stuff to do. But thank you guys for your generosity here. We appreciate that very much. We're going to cover the TikTok ban, the sort of proposed TikTok ban, in more detail on Sunday when it comes to the Restrict Act. So earlier this month, Democratic Senator Mark Warner and Republican Senator John Thune introduced the Restrict Act, issuing the joint statement, "We are pleased by the growing support of our sensible bipartisan bill to establish a comprehensive risk-based approach to tackle technology threats from countries like China and Russia. This bill is very broad in its approach, and therefore it is not only bipartisan in its support, but it is bipartisan in its opposition as well. You have a lot of Democrats and Republicans coming together to support that bill, and a lot of Democrats and Republicans coming together to oppose that bill. That's a bit complicated, and Russell really wants to hash that out with me because I think we actually have a couple of disagreements about that, believe it or not. So we're going to do that on Sunday, but I did want to cover this because I know, Tusker, you wanted to cover this as well. But Josh Hawley back in January introduced a bill that was more specifically targeted at TikTok called the No TikTok on United States Devices Act. Now, he attempted to fast track this vote through unanimous consent, which is a legislative move that sort of speeds up the process for bills that have broad bipartisan support and are a slam dunk. But he was actually blocked by Rand Paul. Rand Paul here blocks Josh Hawley's attempt to fast-track TikTok ban, exposing the GOP split. So basically, unanimous consent means, okay, we're all here. Yes, we all agree to have a vote. Yes, perfect. One senator, all it takes is one senator to say, no, I object to that. And apparently, Rand Paul took advantage of that. So we're going to read a couple of brief portions of the article here. Republican Senator Josh Hawley's effort to fast-track a ban of TikTok's app in the United States hit a snag from within his own party after Senator Rand Paul objected. Hawley, who introduced the No TikTok in U.S. Devices Act in January, tried to pass by unanimous consent on Wednesday, but Paul opposed. Hawley argued, "It's time to act now. The intent of China in all of this is quite clear. They want to build a profile on every single American." And Rand Paul fired back here. He says, in recent days that a ban would violate the First Amendment. Hawley obviously argued the other way. Paul gave the quote, "I'm unlikely to take First Amendment advice from someone who believes that the First Amendment doesn't protect the Communist Party," Paul said Wednesday. "If someone doesn't understand that communism actually is included under the First Amendment, that terrible speech we object to is included under that, this is something we should be very wary of." I think Rand Paul is right about this. I think the Restrict Act is just insanely broad. It is a very much a Patriot Act type of bill, which just grants the government just incredibly sweeping powers, basically can penalize you for essentially going to the wrong website if it's on a virtual private network for a minimum of 20 years. Just makes life online even scarier than it already is. This is more targeted than that, but I have to say, and I know for certain Russell does not feel this way, which is why we're going to talk about this more on Sunday. I'm not convinced you should ban this app. I don't see why.
I personally don't see. I'm very curious to hear Russell's opinion on that.
Tusker just threw shade at Russell Dobler. Got a beef going here.
He's in the chat from what I've seen.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, from what I've seen from people commenting.
Okay.
To me, I do see this as Patriot Act 2.0. From the little bit that I've done on like looking into it, it's talking about the way that they are allowed to infiltrate your internet usage is incredibly scary. I mean, it's talking about, it's all the stuff, it's basically legalizing all the things that we've kind of been railing against as far as some of the like Twitter censorship and stuff like that. It's basically codifying that into law, that the government is basically allowed to snoop on you. So instead of just doing it secretly through the NSA, this is basically what that bill does. And it's doing it in the name of a foreign adversary, just like how we got the Patriot Act, which had to do with the war on terrorism. They scare you of a foreign other, and they whip up all that foment and all that hatred, and then they will come in and they will remove your rights. And they will make you think it's for your protection, and they will make you think it's for your liberty and safety. So I see it as an incredibly authoritarian overreach by the government.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And here, yeah, Russell is in the chat. What? No super chat, Russell? Cheap bastard?
Yeah. What's that?
What the hell's going on?
I don't got a bullet.
You want to be seen and heard or not? I guess you're on the bus with the tour group or something now. It says, I'm not for the bill, but TikTok is a psy-op. I mean, I think, look, TikTok, whether it's a psy-op or not, I mean, I don't know that it is. I think, there are a lot of things that are destructive to society that we allow to go on. Just because something is a net negative to society doesn't mean it should be banned. But anyway, Russell there, who just sent us that chat, is the regular co-host of the show. So I don't want to put words in your mouth and have to go back and forth with you here. But I think Rand Paul making that free speech argument, yeah, I think that's the right argument. Like, look, people are choosing to consume this product and put themselves out there on this platform. Tucker Carlson did this I thought pretty well put together segment where he showed how different countries experience TikTok throughout the world, where sometimes there are like more educational materials put on there. And here in the US, it's for just, pretty dumb shit. But I think in that sense, like social media is really a mirror of the, society. I mean, I think if you take away TikTok for that, they'll start posting it on Facebook. Instagram is already kind of like that in a lot of ways. So to me, I don't know how much healthier the society would be.
The way that I personally
I don't buy it would be any.
Is I feel like the United States government just wants whatever data company that they can pressure legally to give up the data. Like, just find some sort of entrepreneur to make sort of the same sort of TikTok, and then they'll just steal the data themselves. The thing that I feel like really bothers them is that the data belongs to China, and China doesn't care, I don't think, at all about your dances or which 90s music songs you like, or your DJ mashes together of whatever songs that don't seem to fit. I just don't think the Chinese government really cares about that. But I do think the American government cares about it. Very much.
I mean, I buy that too. Yes, for sure. Russell said, what did he say here? I thought I could eat on the arm. Yeah, I thought I could eat on the arm. Yeah, you can eat on the arm. That's true. If I had my soundboard handy, I'd give you a little something for that, but I don't. See, when you're not here, Russell, I got to do all the tech stuff all by myself, which is not that too much different from when you are here, come to think of it. But, like the super chat flagging and all that stuff, got that all going myself this evening. So anyway, let me hide this from the screen. All right, we're going to move on to one segment here that we're going to have, and then we're going to bring on a couple of guests here. We have a guest waiting in the wings for this segment, and then Colin, I do see you back there. Colin Radix-Carter is with us this evening. I'll be with you as soon as we get done with this segment. All right, it shouldn't be too long. I don't want to keep you waiting too long. I try to guess when we're going to have certain segments end, certain segments start, and I always underestimate how long it's going to go. But anyway, we will be as concise as possible here to keep the show moving as quickly as we can. But this is a horrible story. I mean, there was a lot of dark news this week, obviously, and one of the marquee stories of the night has to do with the horrible shooting in Nashville. But this was really terrible as well As migrants' desperation mounts at the border, a fire kills dozens. The fatal blaze comes as border cities across Mexico have been flooded with migrants turned back from the United States and more arriving from other countries. That's reported by the New York Times. So obviously earlier this week, a fire did break out at a migrant detention facility in Juarez, just across the border from El Paso, Texas. As the count now stands, at least 38 are dead and 28 are injured. Now, the Biden administration's crackdown on border entries has decreased the number of migrants coming into the U.S. to their lowest levels since he took office, but the effect of this has sort of become a logjam of migrants overcrowding these detention centers in Mexico. So I'm going to read a little bit from the Times article here. Our patience is running out, Cruz Perez Cuellar, the mayor of Juarez, said in a news conference this month, vowing that the city would take a tougher approach to migrants who could affect the city's economy and thousands of Juarez and El Paso residents. The number of migrants in the city swelled to 12,000, far outstripping the city's meager shelter capacity, according to estimates by the UN's International Office for Migration. Migrants now sleep in churches, hotels, and sometimes on the street. To survive, many of them have taken to selling candies, cleaning windshields, and begging for money. Migration officials brought in scores of agents from other parts of the country to help manage the influx. Human rights groups, in a letter signed this month, denounced what they said were abuses, by the migration officers and what they called the criminalization of migrants. Now, according to the reporting done by the New York Times here, there were protests in the detention center the night that the fire broke out. And the New York Times also caught up with some protesters outside the site of the fire. So I'm going to read a brief account here. Tempers were flaring on Tuesday afternoon among the migrants gathering in front of the facility. Quote, "This tragedy is a crime against humanity," said Juan Pavon, 55, a former bodega owner from San Cristobal, Venezuela, who is living with his two daughters on the streets of Ciudad Juarez. "We're pawns in a game between giants. No one cares what happens to us. The place where these people died has no dignity at all. It is a prison." So now we're going to bring in a friend of the show and frequent supporter of the show. She is a filmmaker. She made a documentary, a wonderful documentary on the immigration issue, which we were happy to screen. I guess that was a couple months back by now, but here she is, Ellen Jimerson. Ellen, thanks for joining us for this. It was really important that you join us for this, so thanks for being available tonight.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, no, you were the first person I thought of when I knew we were going to have to talk about this, because obviously with the shooting in Nashville, the week got off to a horrible start, and then here as well, just another really, really terrible story. But how does this relate to the film that you made? Because the film that you made really talks about the immigration crisis on both sides of the border, and it really shines a light on how both immigration policy and sort of broader economic policy has not only been majorly disruptive here in the U.S. on our side of the border, but just as much so, if not even more so, on the Mexican side.
Yeah. People often say, and with this latest thing too, that our immigration system is broken. That's not true. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. And I've noticed in the reporting on this, it's always, as it has been for decades, it's like the migrants are just jumping up and deciding to leave their countries and come to the U.S. for no particular reason. I mean, there are no push factors in the narrative. Right. There are only pull factors.
Right.
But of course, what is happening is that the U.S. has been setting up people to have to leave with our free trade agreements and our regime changes and our complete hostility to any leader in Central America or South America that does anything for the people. And so then they come here, and the thing is that Mexico is not famous for welcoming migrants from Central America. And one of the precipitating reasons for this fire was that these migrants had been rounded up. It's causing a lot of stress in Ciudad Juarez on the infrastructure there, but also some cultural issues with the Cubans that have come in. And so what actually precipitated starting the fire was that they began to understand that they had been rounded up so they could be deported.
Right.
And
they were going to be sent back.
Attention to how serious deportation is, how devastating it is. People who have come this far, even if they've only come from southern Mexico, and they get
it's a huge way.
Pardon me?
It's a huge way. Yeah.
It's a huge what?
A huge way. A long trip.
Yes. It's a long way.
It's a big schlep, as we would say in New York.
Yes, it is a big schlep. It is not just that it's a long schlep, but that they often have sold everything they have. They may be they may have gotten tangled up with loan sharps in their home country, these kinds of things. And to return them is just devastating. It's devastating to them. It's devastating to their families. And so I have yet to see any commentary on this fire that really digs into the deportation aspect of it.
Well, because so much of the emphasis is on that pull factor, right? Which is where Trump put the emphasis, obviously. And that's where the media put the emphasis while he was in office, because you saw those pictures. I remember there was that horrible picture of the father and his kid who drowned, right? And there was that picture of them dead because they couldn't get in. And that went viral online, right? When Trump was president, there was no way this would not be front page news for the entire week. This week. Right. It would have eclipsed the mass shooting even, right?
Right.
Because this would have been, look at what our policies are doing. And
look at what Trump is doing. Look at what
Trump is doing. Absolutely. And the irony is,
if it weren't for Trump and it weren't for the Republicans, we could return to the halcyon days when we welcomed every migrant and never did a single thing to cause their death or cause them suffering, because Obama's hands were totally clean. And this comes back, I want to make clear for listeners that what I'm saying is that for the 8 years Obama was in office and his deportation rates were skyrocketing, and he was creating more migrants by overthrowing Manuel Zelaya in Honduras and signing free trade agreements. Not a word was spoken by the media. Not to mention our federal policy of funneling migrants to their deaths in the Sonora Desert. So as terrible as the fire is, and around 40 people have died, horrible, no doubt horrible. But even that has gotten more attention, not enough attention, but more attention than our federal policy of funneling migrants to their deaths in the Sonora Desert has ever gotten. And the minimum amount of migrants who have been funneled to their deaths is 8,000. That's the minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you touched upon that in your film, and your film was in 2013, right? So that is 10 years ago now. One of the ultimate ironies of this seems to be that, part of the reason why so many migrants are coming up to the border is because there is a perception that Biden is going to be nicer to them than Trump was. And then they're realizing that's not the case. And that's what's creating this logjam. Yeah.
Well, I read an article on NPR, and they gave conflicting analyses. One was that Title 42 is scheduled to end on May 11th, Title 42 being the Trump policy of returning migrants, taking them out and putting them in Mexico before they could apply for asylum. And so NPR said Biden has pushed to end it. But then they also admit, way down in the article, that he has expanded Title 42 with his little phone app thingy, where people are supposed to stay in Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti, and somewhere else, I'm missing it, until their case can be heard. And all of this, the U.S. has always allowed people to cross the border and apply for asylum in the United States. This was Trump's Title 42 was the one and only novelty about immigration that he concocted. Nothing else was a novelty. Everything he did otherwise, Obama did first, and Clinton did first, and Bush did first. So
no, it's okay. Tusker, do you have anything to add?
That's where I was going.
No, it's okay.
Well, I mean, I just feel like it's too bad that we didn't have AOC in office back whenever Clinton was around, and then she could have cried at a cage. Maybe that would have gotten some attention on it. But also, I just wanted to kind of ask. I did see some of the videos. From my understanding, some of the fire had obviously been set, and then I believe guards were like walking past and not letting out the detainees, even though it was known that there was a fire. You can see from the security cam footage, like it fills up with smoke. Yeah. But before it gets real dire, you just see the guards just kind of ambling by.
Right.
It really just shows a huge lack of just humanity, just for people. I mean, I understand that Mexico and the United States and whoever are ruling, they think that these people are unwanted. They think that they're a burden, but that is not the case. That's a human life that you were allowing to be set on fire and die in a horrible way. What would cause someone, like, what would cause the guards to just not let them out? Like, where is the humanity for these people in general?
It's almost like what you might call, some people in biblical studies would call it an enacted parable, where you've got these guards and these prisoners, and they're basically enacting the bigger picture. But it's something you can, like Rosa Parks not getting up. Some people have called that an enacted parable. I don't know how I feel about that. But what I'm saying is, this is a logical outcome of U.S. policy.
Right.
I mean, is it terrible? Yes. But, I couldn't help but draw a parallel between that fire and the guards just walking by and refuse with what we talked about with
Tony Mitchell,
Walker County Jail, where you've got these guards just ignoring the suffering of a human being.
I would even conflate it with Israel's treatment of Palestinians. as well.
Yeah.
It's essentially looking at a group of people as disposable. And just to go kind of with your enacted parable analogy, I actually do think that that's kind of interesting, because I kind of see it as, today it's migrants, but I also feel like our system as a whole will discard anyone that they see as a burden. It's just,
sure thing.
Today it's migrants. Tomorrow it could be you.
Right. Well, and I was also thinking about terrible fires that have happened in the past. I thought about the shirtwaist, the triangle shirtwaist factories, or, you know, where women were locked into those factories and, you know, they couldn't get out. Or there was a fire in a chicken plant. Same thing. The plant managers had locked the doors and they couldn't get out. So I think the fire at the detention center fits into quite a few narratives, you know, and we could talk about it. We could come at it from a labor perspective. We could come at it from a greed, neoliberalism, capitalism perspective.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, I actually agree on it.
All right, Ellen. Well, thank you so much for making the time for us this evening. You're welcome to hang out in the studio back there. Like we always say, enjoy the mini bar. Help yourself back there in the green room. You can
always great to hear from you.
Some gin right now.
Yeah, some gin. There you go.
Gin
Beautiful.
in there? Okay.
We got a ton of it, girl. Good bag,
yeah, right. We're all stocked. Always great to hear from you, Ellen. Ellen Jimerson, thank you. And you can watch her film, The Second Cooler. It is on our YouTube channel right now. So make sure you watch that. It's a really, really great film.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Ellen, thank you so much. Have a great night. Ellen Jimerson, everybody. All right, we got another guest who's waiting backstage very patiently. I'm sorry, my friend. Ran out slightly behind. Let me just knock some of these super chats out. I don't have too many of them, and then we'll bring you right in. While I do that, we want to shout out our patrons. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence to support this show. Thank you to Ronnie G, Olga J, DBRH. I assume that's Deborah, an abbreviated spelling of that, but thank you, Deborah, if that's you, or if not, however you say your name, DBRH, thank you. And Black Freud, who we've seen in the chat a bunch of times, signed up at Patreon this week. So thank you guys all for signing up. It really does help us quite a bit. We are shooting our Jose Vega documentary next week. We actually get cameras rolling next week, so we're really, really excited about that. And so your support really helps us make things like that possible. So we want to thank you guys all very much for signing up. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence or DueDissidence.substack.com and help us do as many of these streams as possible and fund some of those extra projects like our new documentary film that we have. Like I said, we're going to shoot that this week, this upcoming week, so next week. And then we will probably have that out in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully, I'm going to try my best to get it out by the end of May. You can never make any promises with filmmaking because it's a very surprising process, but we will try our best to get it out as soon as we can after we shoot it. And that's why also, if you sign up at Patreon and Substack, that's more days I can stay home editing the documentary and fewer days going out delivering lunches to people. So that's where all this money goes. We try and put it to as good use as we possibly can. And so we thank you guys all very much for signing up. Ronnie G, Olga J, DBRH, and Black Freud, you are on the scroll here. Scroll number 2 coming in right there, our most recent Patreon signups. So thank you guys very, very much. Your help is much, much, much appreciated. All right, let's bring in another guest. See, we got people here tonight, bringing in a whole party here for a very, very densely packed program. He is the host of the Indie News Network, and you guys probably follow him on Twitter. He's a great, great account. If you don't, our friend Colin Radix Carter. Colin, thanks for joining us. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you again, Keen. What's up, Tusker? Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you, Colin.
Oh, you guys have never been on the same stream together. Okay,
interesting.
No, you must know who each other are. If you hang around these
for
parts
anyone who's just dropped in and missed the front part of it, Russell is now my dead name. I have chosen to transition to the whitest lady on earth. And my chosen name is Chester.
I hope he's watching. He would get a kick out of that. He was watching and he was hanging out earlier, but he would appreciate that joke. I should have thought of that before you signed on. Looks like he's still in the audience now. I see the last chat Russell made was at 8:51 p.m. But yes, he would appreciate that joke very, very much. All righty. So, Colin, I thought to ask you to join us because I saw you chiming in on a couple of these issues that we're going to be talking about on Twitter. And I said, well, if I'm talking about them tonight, I may as well have Colin come on and talk about them with us.
Sure.
Yeah, so I figure why not? Now, we're going to do the David Pakman thing last, actually.
Okay.
But you, as long as we're giving your intro, you were banned by David Pakman, or not banned, you were blocked by him on Twitter earlier today, right?
Correct.
See, your tweets get out there really far. I mean, you have a decent amount of followers, but it's not like a huge amount of followers. But
no.
you get blocked by people all the time. I've never been blocked by anybody.
It was Mike Figueredo back in the fall over the student debt thing, and now I got blocked by Anna Kasparin like well over a year ago.
Yeah,
and like it's just funny. I'm not that significant, so it's like, and yet these bigger names block me.
Yeah,
so
you
it's
get blocked
kind of
a
like
lot. I don't. Yeah,
insignificant but blockable. I think that's,
right.
That's a decent title.
Yeah.
Small but worth blocking.
Right. I guess. So,
well, your channel's growing now. You guys are doing a great job over at INN. Your channel's starting to move, which is great, and that's awesome. It's very well deserved. You do a couple different shows over there, right? You do one with Crab.
I do one with Crab.
By the way, Crab, our primary opponent, Extra Bulla's arch nemesis, the Crab, who decided to declare his candidacy a couple hours after Bulla declared his. So I got a bone to pick.
I have it on good authority that Crab started the detention center fire. So
yeah, well, I said I thought
as the press secretary for Bulla's campaign.
Yeah, he also was caught raising money in a synagogue while falsely insisting that he's not technically a shellfish, which I thought was very suspicious, dubious. I didn't think that was accurate, but he's going to have some explaining to do there. But anyway, we won't hold that against you, Colin. You host a show with him, and then you host a show with Reef, obviously, that we were on, right? So you got two different things going.
Yeah, so I do a show with Crab every once in a while, just when we feel the need to. Hopefully we can try and make it more regular, but given my schedule, it's kind of hard. But then every Wednesday with Reef Breland for INN News, that's kind of my primary focus on the network. Okay, awesome. All right, so we got 3 segments here that we're going to cover with you, Colin. The first of which is a really interesting one. Marianne Williamson is on the campaign trail. And so here she is at an event in South Carolina where she had a run-in with reparations activist and friend of the show, full disclosure, Marcel Dixon, who ran as a primary challenger to James Clyburn in 2022. He plans to run again in 2024. And he went to Marianne Williamson's campaign event in South Carolina. It was one of about 7 people in the audience, it looks like, according to this footage here. But we will show you how this went down. Reparations is really his main issue. And so he started by congratulating her for running on reparations. Right.
Then things kind of took a turn.
Yeah.
All right. So there was about 8 minutes worth of footage. We're going to play the first 4.5 because then it gets a little repetitive after that. But we can stop and start as we go. So here's Marcel Dixon with Marianne Williamson.
I want to thank you for being, and I'm going to say this because they like to say man enough. I'm going to thank you, a woman, for being man enough to do not what's popular, not what's easy, but what's right. Yes. And you're running on a reparations platform. And that's the right thing to do. Now, I do want to give you some pointers, if you're open to it, about your reparations plan, because I face all kinds of backlash, which I gladly accept. I'm here for it. My ancestors who were fighting in these rice marshes and swamps, did it back down to the backlash? I will be an insult to my great grandmother who died at 101 if I back down because of people saying mean things to me. One, reparations comes from the federal government. It does not come from your tax dollars. America pays reparations every single day. They're paying it to Ukrainians right now. They're paying it when they take care of people in the country illegally and going to the troves. They paid it to the Japanese Americans who were interned. Even though my great-grandfather helped to save the Jews from the Nazis, he came back to America and he was locked out of the GI Bill, which gave trillions of dollars to mainly white veterans that they say built the middle class. And yet those same Jews right now are getting reparations. People in Walmart.
Wait, I have to stop you. I am a Jew. What Jews right now are getting reparations?
The Jews who are Holocaust survivors.
Now is true. What?
The Jews who are Holocaust survivors.
But they're not getting reparations from the American government.
No, they're not. What the American government did in 2014 agreed to facilitate a $12 million payback to Holocaust survivors.
That had nothing to do with the U.S. government giving
money
to
the U.S. government did facilitate that payback.
That facilitation is with an administrative Germany.
Okay.
Germany paid reparations.
Well, so my point is though, but
the
my
United
point,
States did not pay reparations.
but the United States government facilitated, and the point still exists. Me, a descendant of American slaves, haven't seen a penny yet. At the end of slavery, and I know you probably know these numbers, 42 to 84 trillion dollars was the value of those of us who were enslaved. And I like the fact that you're running on reparations, but you have $1 trillion as the amount, and that is insultingly low. And I understand that you may have to make it palatable because to the American public, but if we want to do what's right, we got to do what's right. And the amount that we are owed is at $70 trillion minimum. If you just do $1 trillion, they said in the 20th century, Black Americans lost $400 billion in just land theft alone. That doesn't go to Jim Crow. That doesn't go to being left on the Homestead Act that gave white Americans $10 trillion and 300 acres. So I love the fact that we're running a reparations plan, but your plan is going to have to get those numbers right. It's got to be lineage based, and the money needs to go directly to us. Because when the Japanese Americans got their money, it didn't go to a council, it went straight to them. Those Holocaust survivors, that money goes straight to them. That's right. We deserve to have even more so.
Yeah, so let me say a couple of things. First of all, I honor how you stand up for your ancestors, and I stand up for mine. The United States has not paid $1 of reparations to Jews for the Holocaust. That is number one. And by the way, as far as some of the things you said about Roosevelt, which was true about his treatment of black people, he didn't do well by the Jews during the 2 years when Hitler said they could still leave. So I will not stand here while anti-Semitic tropes are repeated.
That's not anti-Semitic, that's the truth.
All right, I just have to stop this for 1 second. You know, this certainly gives credence to that Politico article, which mentioned how short a temper she has when she's challenged on something. Yeah. I mean, just look at the reaction. The thing that's really interesting is he starts off by giving her credit for putting this as, you know, part of her campaign. He rattles off a list of groups of people who he says have been paid reparations in some form, right? Mm-hmm. And then as soon as he gets to saying Holocaust survivors were paid reparations, which he later cited, and I'll cite here in a few moments, all of a sudden, like, just the lack of political instinct on her part to decide to pounce on him there is just pretty amazing. We are going to finish this in a second, but go ahead.
No, and I think it was interesting, as you were saying, he was very polite. I feel like this is kind of like a masterclass on what Jose Vega would kind of say to people. But he started off politely, and then he kind of went into the facts, and she was cool until it directed towards her, and more specifically, you know, being a Jew. Then she got upset and started going at him. But I think it's interesting that she mentioned that she started at like $1 trillion in terms of reparations for African Americans, which Marcel cited that's not nearly enough in terms of what is owed to black people. And I've always had this issue with Marianne. I just kind of felt like, because there's a lot of people online who say, oh, we need her running because she's going to talk about issues like Medicare for all and blah, blah, blah. fine. But this is a woman who has seemingly been known in the space to be, at least definitely in 2020, to be somewhat decent on reparations. And the fact that she's kind of lowballed the amount, which rule number one in politics, you never lowball, you always go for the highest amount possible and then work your way down from there. That I wouldn't even call that the compromise position. That's not even like, that's like pennies essentially. So really, I just have always said this about Marianne when she announced her campaign and then she announced that, oh, I'm going to run on reparations. I just always believed personally that this is just a way to pander to the Black community. And I can't even call this a pander. Like I mentioned, like online, like she can't even pander right. You know, if you want to do it to the maximum that you can, and then work your way down from there if at all necessary. But I just believed, you know, from the start, you know, when Marianne announced, oh, I want to talk about reparations, I knew she wasn't serious. And with the back and forth she had with Marcel, she just kind of proved it here.
All right. Well, let's let this finish. I'm sorry, Tusker. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
To your point about kind of lowballing the number, in my mind, I just don't really feel like the true damages have really been assessed. So why would you even put out a number to begin with?
Well, this goes to a point where she's obviously not prepared to talk about this issue with people who really know the ins and outs of this issue. Marcel is extraordinarily informed on this issue. He talks a mile a minute. He spits facts all the time. I mean, he never repeats himself. He never stutters, stammers. He clearly knows this inside and out, and he comes prepared. And so if you're going to front and center this issue in a campaign, you have to be prepared for conversations like this. And part of being prepared for conversations like this is being prepared to hear opinions that may offend the sensibilities of woke white liberals. Because Marcel is a guy who, I don't agree with him on all these points that he makes when it comes to the illegal immigration issue. He is extremely tough on migrants, extremely tough in a way that I think is overboard, right? But where does that come from? That comes from a place of pain. It comes from the place of a guy who feels, rightfully so, that his people are always pushed to the back of the line when it comes to giving them what the government owes them. And he's right to feel that way. Now, I don't think he's right to take that out on migrants in the way that he often does when he talks about them in that way, but it's coming from a sincere place of genuine pain. And if you are going to, as a white woman from whatever fucking, you know, LA alcove you came from, if you're going to go into South Carolina and talk this issue, you have to be prepared to hear this kind of pain. You have to be prepared to have these kinds of conversations without going off the handle the first time you become a bit uncomfortable. Like when he mentioned Holocaust survivors, right? So let's just let this finish here, and then we'll get into this more.
That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the truth. Holocaust survivors are getting reparations. That is not anti-Semitic. That's the truth. And I will continue to do so. And standing up for my ancestors means speaking the truth. Holocaust survivors did get forced insurance facilitated. That is a fact. That is a fact. I don't know what it meant. All I know that my ancestors have not gotten a penny. My ancestors
she lunges at him. I mean, this is what the article talked about. Just that short fuse. You know what I mean? Which is when you get to her, she goes off, lunges across the room.
That's all I know, and it's an insult for the American government to facilitate a facilitation of payment to Holocaust survivors while my great-grandfather is still alive and he fought to save the Jews from the Nazis.
Excuse me. It is because I'm Jewish that I feel so strongly about reparations.
And I feel strongly about reparations for my people too.
All right, that's all we got there. Like I said, it's an issue. It's a matter of preparedness. If you're going to have a conversation with someone like Marcel, who is so passionate about this issue and who comes from a place of very deep personal experience on this issue, you have to be willing to hear him out without getting so defensive at the first mention of something that makes you uncomfortable, right? I mean, it's just crazy.
this is something that I've kind of mentioned before in terms of, I think, Black issues in general. It's the idea of they're not really talked about very much, I would argue. It's the idea of like reparations, especially among the African American community, is a big issue. And it's for me, especially being in this space, it's always kind of the assumption that when it's for issues like Medicare for all or like a $50 million wage, that the assumption is, oh, if you are of color and on the left, then you should automatically be for those issues. But when it comes to issues such as this, when it comes to like reparations or like defunding the police, which are, I would argue, more primarily Black issues, we don't necessarily get the same support, especially if you're non-Black. That's how I personally feel at times when it comes to issues such as that. And I think especially with reparations, because it's such a nuanced topic, there has to be a lot more education on this, especially in terms of how, if you are walking in solidarity with us, especially in light of our issues, then you should be aware of the issues and the pain that surround the issue of reparations, so that you're able to kind of support, be in solidarity, and kind of call out these issues to people who are not going to listen to us otherwise. And so for Marianne, who is running as a presidential candidate, who has said that she wants to run on this platform, she should have been more prepared, as you were saying, Keaton, in terms of the anger and vitriol that is existing within the Black community, because I think oftentimes with this issue, we have been ignored. And instead of coming, I think with the number, I think with the cost of it, I think it was a slap in the face. But then just the idea of her attacking him, and there are issues with him, but he's right on this. And the fact that she kind of lunged at him in response to that, I don't think that just shows her ill preparedness for this, but also to me, just how unserious she is in terms of really doing something in terms of dealing with this issue in a way that will make him feel, okay, you really are for us and you're going to fight for us on our behalf on this.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to take these two questions because these touch on very important points here, and so I want to touch on them. Scroofapone, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Dude talking about the Jews getting aid after surviving the Holocaust like it's a bad thing. Genuinely, what the fuck? No, he wasn't talking about it like it's a bad thing. He was citing examples of other reparations as good things and saying this is how you make the point to people. You say we've paid reparations to other groups who have been wronged in the past.
Right.
So he wasn't saying that Holocaust survivors shouldn't get reparations. He's using that to prove his point that his people ought to get reparations also. And to Gene's point, why is he so focused on the Jews? He wasn't focused on the Jews. He rattled off a few different groups there. Right. And she stopped him when he got to the Jews because she's Jewish herself. And so she got very defensive about that. But he mentioned the Japanese right before
that, at the beginning.
And she made an issue of this. She's the one who stopped him in his track. He was in the middle of complimenting her, and he said, I'm going to give you some pointers as to how to communicate this because I've been communicating this for years. This is my main cause. And so he wasn't fixated on that. She was. And she decided to cut him off. And I just want to play one more piece of video because there was another interview with Marcel Dixon about 9 months back where he went on a show with two Jewish hosts, and he made this same point. And so I want to play this clip. You might recognize the hosts of this show, how they responded when he mentioned reparations for Holocaust survivors.
My grandfather is a World War II vet, still alive. The first thing he told me the U.S. military made them do when they defeated the Nazis was give back all of the land they had taken from the Jews. And Holocaust survivors get reparations. It is hypocritical and pure anti-Black racism for anyone to argue against the fact that the federal government owes Black Americans, descendants of American slaves, reparations for not just chattel slavery, for the lynch mobs, all the Black Wall Streets that were burnt down. It was over 50 of them.
Look at those two guys not flying off the handle. Those
Right.
two Jewish guys not flying off the handle when he mentions that. I'm Jewish myself. My grandfather was a German Jew. Now, he was fortunate enough to be born here in the U.S., so his immediate family was not persecuted by the Nazis, but not all of his family were that lucky. There's no doubt my family tree has fewer branches on it than it should have because of the Nazis, right? So I'm not like immune from taking offense to certain things. But first of all, the invocation of reparations for Holocaust survivors is not anti-Semitic. And so I would not take offense to that under normal circumstances. But in a conversation like this, where you're talking about a group of people who has been just wronged in such profound ways that are just beyond comprehension to people who have not experienced it themselves or whose family members have not experienced it themselves. When you're having a conversation with a person for whom this issue is something that they think about night and day and talk about night and day and put themselves out there to fight for night and day, you cannot be that thin-skinned.
No,
you cannot be that thin-skinned going into that conversation, and it proves what Colin said. It's just a lack of seriousness, right? There was reporting, as Russell got into when we did that Kyle thing, that her AIDS work, as much as it was great work, right? We're not knocking her for doing that work. There were people who said she got into that partly for the fame, right? Partly to score points. And it kind of seems consistent with this reparations platform. She put this on expecting to go to South Carolina and have all these black people there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She didn't expect a real conversation from a real activist who knew what he was talking about. And that's what she got. And that's how she reacted.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I would say any single time, any single person that comes out to compliment you and support you and perhaps give you a little bit of like actual good criticism, I think you should always charge them in a fluted skirt and shoulder pads. I think that that's absolutely the way that you win people over to your side for your campaign, because that's essentially what she did. Every single time someone wants to break with her and sort of give, I mean, it's just what Marcel said. He said, I want to congratulate you. Now here are some pointers. And the second that she disagreed with him and he kind of stood up for himself and fought back, that video of her just charging across the room, meanwhile lifting up all the table skirts because there weren't any people to hold them down. It kind of shows the candidate that she is and who she will be, and if she was ever to be president, exactly what you could expect. Right. I mean, you can't push back on her at all.
Right. And look at the room. Yeah, there's no sound here because I don't want to play the video. There's fucking 9 people in this room. Look at these empty chairs. I mean, my God, you gotta go. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, single digit turnout, basically.
Right.
I mean, and maybe a dozen people there.
And this is...
Can you play her charging across the room again?
Yeah. Russell wanted me to set that to either the Jaws theme or the Psycho theme. He wanted me to do that, but I had to prep this whole show by myself today, and I barely got it together. My kids are being very, very high maintenance today. It's not their fault. I mean, they're being good sports. I'm packing the house, getting ready for the move, and so when I'm home with them, they're kind of just locked in the house most days. So I don't blame them. But it was hard enough getting the show prepped. I didn't have the special effects ready, but here she goes. Let's see if we can do this again.
And the money needs to go directly.
Yeah. So let me say a couple of things. First of all, I honor how you stand up for your ancestors for the Holocaust. That is number one. And by the way, as far as some of the things you said about Roosevelt, which was true.
I don't know where this is. I'm just flying blind.
He didn't do well by the Jews during the 2 years when Hitler said they could still leave. So I will not.
Oh yeah, this is the anti-Semitic. Okay, so it's coming up.
That's not anti-Semitic. That's the truth.
I mean, it really is true. I mean, it really does corroborate that Politico story pretty well. Like, it's not hard to imagine her throwing a phone at him. Lucky for him, maybe he should have a smartphone on her at the time.
Speaking the truth. Holocaust survivors did get forced insurance facilitated. That is a fact. That is a fact.
Okay, here it comes. Sorry, folks.
All I know that my ancestors have not got it. My ancestors have not got it.
Notice how, look, when she starts the conversation, she's standing right near him, right?
Yeah.
And then when he starts giving her, constructive criticism, she walks away.
Walks away.
Then she screams at him from across the room when he's arguing. And then when he says something that really gets her, she charges. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yep. Like if you were directing that as a theater scene, it would make perfect sense.
But yeah, I think this kind of proves to me, and I think this is kind of a lesson for us, I think, in independent media. I think especially with issues that are pertinent to various people, races, that we definitely need to have more sensitivity and education in understanding the issues around reparations, for example. And then what Marianne did, don't do that. But being willing to listen, being willing to accept the anger and the pain that comes behind a lot of these issues. And it's not to say you need to have an answer. And honestly, if Marianne came at this is I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I am willing to listen to you and hear out your community and hear the Black community and hear you in what you need. And together or collaboratively, we should be able to figure out a solution of how to move forward. If she was able to do that, I would give her a little more credit than what she was doing here. But the fact that, as you said, Keen, when he kind of went the list of, this is the reality of our situation, this is the reality of what other groups have gotten, wasn't interested in that. By walking away, she wasn't engaging him at all. And then until he mentioned the thing that was pertinent to her and where she got triggered at, that's when she came charging at him. And so for me, again, not serious. You're only saying this to appeal to us in the guise of, and that's only the only thing that makes her different from Bernie, because Bernie was basically not for reparations for Black people. He made that very clear in his campaign. I think this is the thing that Marianne is using to make her stand out, so that people like me would be able to be oh, I'll be willing to listen to you. But given this, and I know Nick mentioned this from RBN, mentioned this, I think a couple of days ago, just wait until Black Twitter gets a hold of it. Because, the moment that more people see this, not to say people are going to give Marianne the light of day anyway, but for Black people, this is an absolute no from them. So I think Marianne basically, not to say she had the Black vote, but she essentially lost it here in her actions with Marcel.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she had any chance of going anywhere anyway, but I think, this just showed to me, I mean, all the points you make are, I think, 100% right. But it also just comes back to a terrible political instinct. I mean, first of all, like I said, you have a dozen people in the joint, right? I mean, you got a dozen people there. For every chair with an ass in it, there's 3 with no ass in it, right? And then you get a guy here who starts out giving you credit and says, hey, as somebody who knows this issue a lot, here's some pointers. And the second he says something, you call him an anti-Semite. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah, but it's also just another example of one of those situations, where Marianne sits there and the second that something comes up, it seems like she wanted to play a game of essentially oppression Olympics, And I don't really think that winning the gold medal in oppression Olympics is a major prize. I mean, I'd be much more interested in having solidarity with people and finding solutions. And no one gets a medal, because that's not really anything for people to win. Horrible.
I mean, this is the thing. In her mind, I'm sure she makes a case for reparations based on those ideas that you were talking about, right? Solidarity, love for everybody, right? That's the way she comes at that issue, which is a way that I would expect a progressive political actor to come at that issue, especially a white progressive, especially an upper class white progressive. That's fine. Look, that's her experience. That's where she comes from. But to not know and expect and understand that when you go to South Carolina and start talking reparations, you're going to the Confederacy. You're going to a guy whose ancestors were brutalized. And you have to expect that not everybody is going to come at this issue with this kumbaya spirit. There are going to be people who feel like, hey, why does everybody else get a break except me for the brutality that my ancestors had to endure? There is going to be some resentment there. There is going to be some people there with an attitude that like, hey, when are we getting ours? Why are we always pushed to the back of the line? And in Marcel's case, that does manifest itself in anti-immigrant views, which I do not share, right? It does manifest itself in, certain statements there where he does sort of push it past a point where it is like politically palatable, I think was the phrase that he used, like $70 trillion, right? But that's what you're going to encounter when you talk about this issue seriously. So if you can't have that conversation, then you should stay the fuck in Los Angeles and talk about reparations as a great idea of yours at the cocktail parties that you and your pals go to. Don't go to South Carolina and expect that that's going to fly in every town hall there, because it's not.
This is just another example of white savior politics to me.
Well, exactly. That's how she expected to be greeted. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just like, here's this rich white woman coming in to save the day. And it's like, no, we don't need to be saved. We know what the issues are. We want people to listen to us and being able to work in solidarity with us to be able to push together. Because at the end of the day, the reparations issue should remain within the Black community. You as an ally or work in solidarity can help support that. And honestly, I felt like Marianne lost it big time here in terms of whether you agree with Marcel or not. I also don't in many other issues, but he's right on this one. He would be a very powerful ally to make the case, especially among Black people in South Carolina, to help her to elevate the conversation. If that's the issue that people are saying for Marianne to do, like, we want her to elevate the issues. That is one of them.
Well, that's such a great point. And it's not only that, but hello, he's running as a primary challenger to James Clyburn, who Marianne is already on record as having helped rig the primary last time and who's going to help rig the primary this time because they pushed South Carolina to first. So how powerful would it be, in her case, to have this very esteemed reparations activist and primary challenger to James Clyburn on your side? Right? Which it looked like he was open to being on her side. That's why he was there. That's why he was complimenting her in the first place.
Or how about just to save, I mean, even if it's only for a purely self-interested reason, you just had the Politico hit piece come out on her or whatever.
Right.
And then you can't even embody what it is that she's supposed to be embodying, which is like love and respect and
show a little grace under pressure.
And instead, you literally charge across the room like rich white people on a safari in Africa and hippos coming towards them. I mean, that's literally what she was doing. It's just like, oh, you better not. You've completely destroyed any vision of you being calm, cool, collected, and willing to listen to people and hear people out.
Right.
It doesn't jive with her image.
Yeah. Well, and imagine her doing this. Well, she probably wouldn't, but the way this kind of dictates to me of how if she were to be asked that on a federal level, like in a debate, like how she can respond that way. And they could play this clip and just be like, how are you going to respond? What do you have to say in response to Marcel? So she basically blew it here. But then again, I knew she wasn't serious about reparations to begin with. It was just a hook to make her look, to give her like a Bernie edge of something that he didn't promote, that she can say, oh, I'm for this in a way that Bernie is not, just to make that distinction from him.
Her dipping her toe into identity politics.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
And not even as I said, not even doing it correctly. So
there you have it. All right, let's take a few super chats, then we'll go on to our next segment. From Harpoon, shout out to Corbyn, who got booted by the UK shitlibs. Looking forward to him running independent. So am I. And actually, that was on the short list of things to cover tonight, so we'll definitely put that on for Sunday. As you can see, we had a lot of choices in terms of what to cover this evening, but thank you for the donation, sir. I appreciate that very much. And some money for a couple of slices, 10 pounds. I don't know what inflation's like on your side of the pond there, but we can still get a couple slices for less than $10 here. It's creeping up there, but it's still less than 10. But thank you. Leaves me enough to cover the tip. Thank you, Harpoon. Baza, just paying my dues. Thank you. Don't recall seeing you here before, Baza. By the way, let's do a little like check here. I don't know how we're doing on likes, but please hit that like button and please subscribe to this channel if you can. It really helps us out. Like I said, the more subscriptions we get, the more likely we are to elect Extra Bull, next president of the United States. Very, very important. Axel Strife, $5. Thank you, Axel. Brandon, as your name is. The irony of the sweeping scope of the bill with the Twitter files still getting dropped is not lost on people with multiple brain cells. Yeah, you're talking about the TikTok ban. I think that's a good point. It is a good point. And it also does make the Republicans look a little shitty because they had a good thing going, posturing as free speech advocates when they were defending Matt Taibbi from the Democrats who were going after him for that work. And now here they are trying to ban TikTok. So I think that's a good point there. Garble, thanks for the $10. Garble, what's your opinion on putting cheese in a Jamaican patty? I am against it. What do you think, Colin?
Yeah, I am against it too.
Yeah.
That's unnecessary.
Yeah.
I'm not Jamaican. I am of Caribbean descent, but yeah, that's not needed. You don't need to do that. So
do you know if they put fish in authentic callaloo? Like the collard, like the Jamaican collard?
Yeah.
That is the authentic way to do it, or no?
Well, it's not to say, I wouldn't say it's authentic. My mom's from Trinidad, and she would make callaloo. I don't like it personally.
No, with the fish in it, it's horrible. I got it from a place the other day because Newburgh, there's a lot of Caribbean like restaurants, and, like food trucks and things like that. So I got the callaloo and I'm tasting fish. I'm smelling fish. I'm like, what the hell? Because I got a jerk chicken with some callaloo, and I'm like, it's shredded fish because I can't stand the taste of fish. I'm not.
No, I don't think that. I think people are again being extra with it. And yeah. No, it's like no. It's not to say it's not possible. I've never seen it done that way. So
me neither. And I thought maybe I like the white boy who was stupid to order this because I didn't know it was in here.
No,
but,
you're not. No, that's not a typical thing you put in. So yeah, I mean, I've never heard of it before, and it could but it doesn't sound good to me, and I already don't like it. Sorry, I'm gonna lose my Trini card, but I don't like it too much either. So, but
there's a Trinidadian place that just opened up here in my hometown. I ate at it a couple times. It's good. It's good. Yeah, very good. Kinky, thanks Kinky for the $5. When will AMLO put up a wall at the border to keep desperate Americans out? Yeah, well, that's the thing. Should put a sign at the border saying, yes, you're being turned away, but don't worry, you're not missing much. Not missing much. Daryl, thank you, Daryl, for the $27.99. That's very generous of you, Daryl. I get it. I finally make it to a live show and Dobula runs and hides.
I haven't hidden. I just sent the transition. I have smaller daughter.
Stop dead naming Tusker.
Wait, seriously, stop dead naming me.
I love that you guys interact with us peasants. Well, we are peasants as well. That's why we have no choice but to interact with you. We gotta keep the lights on here. That's what the super chats are all about. We're peasants ourselves. Even when we disagree or offer criticism, Russ has responded to me twice, which is more than other channels. Well, thank you, Daryl. I appreciate it. I hope Russell wasn't too mean to you. We generally enjoy disagreements with people as long as it's constructive and honest. We can be nasty bastards here, but we do like to cultivate a viewpoint diverse audience. So thank you for being here and thank you for the donation. Oz the Boomer, Colin is Pakman's new friend.
Yeah, right.
We're going to get to that soon. That's not too far off. Not enough cereal. You hit us twice. Thank you for that 5, and thank you for these 5. Marianne was about half a second from calling him a mansplainer.
Yeah, like I did mention that, but it just is reminiscent of what she did to Nick. Very much that, and it was.
She's 2 for 2 on yelling at
black men.
Right.
Because,
but good job promoting reparations.
Right. Like on issues that, again, being president and being on the left, allegedly, she should be able to answer with conviction, and she couldn't. So, and she blamed the black men for basically making her look like shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, basically that's kind of what we did hundreds of years ago. You guys shouldn't have been so available and on the shore. You know, like, it's just a horrible way to look at it.
All right. Well, let's go on to segment number 2 with Colin here, our second main segment. These are really all main segments tonight. No real headlines. We just had, as Russell would say, a t-shirt gun of content for you guys this evening.
Russell had a gig whenever the topics got dark. Thanks.
Yeah, Russell. Right. Yeah. I have a gig tonight. Well, actually, he was jealous when I texted him the list of topics. He's like, "Oh man, I wish I could be there for this one. This sounds like a good one." And I think it is a good one. I hope you guys are all enjoying it. Please hit that like button if you are. Please hit that subscribe button. Hold on one second. Just got to text my mother-in-law back real quick. She's in the apartment downstairs. Apparently the dog had an accident. And just telling her, sorry, I can't tend to it right now. I'll do it when I'm done. So, all right.
No, Ma.
I'll get to it. Yeah. I'll get to it in 3.5 hours. Don't worry. No. Anyway, here we go. So Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz testified yesterday about his company's union-busting practices. Now, his appearance was compulsory in the sense that Bernie Sanders threatened him with a subpoena after he originally declined to testify. So we're going to play a couple of clips here. The reason I think this is notable is not so much for Bernie getting the win. Bernie did what he's expected to do in these situations. This is sort of his wheelhouse here. But I think this is more notable for just what an utter demon Howard Schultz made of himself. So we're going to play some pieces of video here.
Past 18 months, Starbucks has waged the most aggressive and illegal union-busting campaign in the modern history of our country. That union-busting campaign has been led by Howard Schultz, the multi-billionaire founder and director of Starbucks, who is with us this morning only under the threat of subpoena. Let us be clear about the nature of Starbucks' vicious anti-union efforts. The National Labor Relations Board, NLRB, has filed over 80 complaints against Starbucks for violating federal labor law. There have been over 500 unfair labor practice charges lodged against the company, and judges have found that Starbucks broke the law 130 times across 6 states since workers began organizing in the fall of 2021. These violations include the illegal firing of more than a dozen Starbucks workers for the crime of exercising their right to form a union and to collectively bargain for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. Since the first Starbucks union was certified more than 450 days ago in Buffalo, workers at more than 360 stores across 40 states have held union elections. 83% of these elections have resulted in a union victory, and today nearly 300 Starbucks coffee shops employing more than 7,000 workers have a union, despite Starbucks' aggressive anti-union efforts. But with nearly 300 shops voting to form a union, Starbucks has refused to sign a single first contract with the union, not a single one.
All right, so that's sort of the preamble there. Just to fill you in on the context in which this hearing took place, we'll go back to the video in just a second. That's amazing. Not a single contract has actually been inked. I mean, it's just so completely obvious what is going on here. And the fact that Schultz sits there, first of all, just the balls on this prick to actually sit there with the Starbucks cup with the logo privilege toward the camera, getting like a commercial in for Starbucks. Just pretty incredible stuff. Now, he goes on here. Here's where he starts pressing him. And this made the more perfect union clip. So let's hear this.
Have you ever threatened, coerced, or intimidated a worker for supporting a union?
I've had conversations that could have been interpreted in a different way than I intended. That's up to the person who received the information that I spoke to him about.
Were you informed of or involved in the decision to withhold benefits from Starbucks workers in unionized stores, including higher pay and faster sick time accrual?
My understanding, when we created the benefits in May, 1 month after I returned as CEO, my understanding was under the law, we did not have the unilateral right to provide those benefits to employees who were interested in joining a union.
Am I hearing you say that you were involved in the decision to withhold benefits from Starbucks workers in unionized stores? Is that what I'm hearing?
It was my understanding that we could not provide those benefits under the law.
See, he's being extremely slimy there because, of course, you could ink a contract and give them the benefits, right? That's what he's not telling you there. So that's the lawyer answer that he's obviously giving there. And by the way, suspicious timing, Howard Schultz, who was talking against unionization before he was brought back as CEO, he gets brought back as CEO just as these union efforts are underway. I mean, it's just so completely obvious why he was brought back in and how he is acting in his new role now, although he is stepping out in a couple weeks. That's how he tried to wiggle out of the hearing, right? At first he said, well, I don't think I should show up to testify because I'm not going to be here much longer anyway. And then Bernie threatened him, and so he showed up anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, just brazen. And sorry, go ahead. Did you have anything to add to that?
No, it just shows how much of a dick he really is. So, and I almost kind of consider this theater in a sense, because on one hand, it's good for Bernie to actually do this, but the other thing is what good is it going to do, really?
I mean, all of these things. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and my kind of issue with it is, at the beginning, Bernie said this is, Starbucks has launched the most aggressive union busting campaign, blah, 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 in the history of the United States. Okay. Talk about Haymarket, the Pinkertons. People got shot and killed in those. Okay. And then, like, Bernie's going to sit here and say the largest, strike breaking thing. Joe Biden just busted up a rail strike.
Right.
So, like, what's our level of aggression here in history? That's the reason why it seems performative.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you have the Katie Porters who go up with the whiteboards and they'll, harangue a CEO. They bring him in, right? They give him one, like a sort of struggle session of sorts. But then, party brass looks after them in the end anyway. Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah, exactly. But what I talked about is, I really think there should be organized boycotts of non-union Starbucks houses. I think there should be, because Starbucks, unlike Amazon, Starbucks is actually like avoidable. Like, I shop from Amazon because, like, I'm not a rich guy. I have finite consumer choices. If I can get an HDMI cable for $6 on Amazon or $34 at Best Buy, I got to go through Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't not do that. When it comes to Starbucks, there's plenty of alternatives. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you about the Dunkin' Donuts app, everybody. Our new sponsor for the show. We are brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Did you know you get 100 bonus points when you order ahead on Mondays? So on Monday morning, order ahead at Dunkin' Donuts. Curbside pickup still available.
And let me take this opportunity to inform you guys about Folgers, brewed at home, an entire pot.
Exactly. I mean, it's avoidable. You don't have to go to Starbucks, and pay those prices for coffee. There's always a coffee shop across the street. So I mean, I really I'm not drinking Starbucks anymore.
Yeah. I only go to Starbucks now if I have a gift card.
Right.
It's not my money. So, but the last time I went into Starbucks to get coffee probably was in 2019, 2020. So, there are better places. And I'm sorry, Keen, but and I make this joke, you know, like I know Warren and like other people, but like, Dunkin' ain't shit either. I get it, it's cheap, but it's like, look, I lived in Boston for 17 years, and
Dunkin's
there's
not
like
that cheap now.
It's not that cheap now, but it's still not good. Like, I get it if you like it, but it's like, you know,
No,
like,
it's not great quality coffee.
It's not great, but I get it.
Yeah.
Like, it's cheap considering, you know, and it's in most places, but
right, it's available. Yeah, she's Folgers. She's a team Folgers. Yeah, but no, find an independent coffee shop or a Dunkin' Digest, like anything. Like you can avoid it. You know, no, actually, Dunkin' Donuts is not cheap. It really is
not anymore.
It's like a medium coffee is like $3 at Dunkin' Donuts now.
Yeah,
which is basically what it is at Starbucks. Extra Bola says bodega coffee $2, baby. Well, that's inflation. When I lived in the city, it was less. When I lived in the city, you can get a bodega coffee for $1. Yeah. Yeah, and that wasn't that long ago.
Everything was better when you lived in the city.
It was all better. It was better because I was there. It was a brighter, sunnier place. It was a happier place. Better vibes that I brought to it. James Vanderzanden, thank you for the donation, my friend. We have the old school crowd in here tonight. James Vanderzanden and Axel, they've been supporting us since the old audio podcast days. So good to see you guys, and thank you for the support. Where's pro-labor Biden? If the Democrat Party supported unions at the Starbucks workers would have a contract by now. Democrats won't even fund the NLRB. Yeah, I mean, look, that's obviously what's hidden in plain sight here is that, you know, they'll drag in a villain like Schultz who will make a villain of himself. But, you know, when it comes to talking that kind of tough game with party leadership, they're much more quiet. But here's a piece. This gets
just real fast.
Go ahead.
I need you to put Dwayne Vogel's comment up on the screen, just real fast.
How recently did that come in?
It's like 4 previous.
Okay, so it's new, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. That segue was so smooth, just like my Dunkin' Donuts brand coffee. Just like a midnight roast with a toasted almond shot and 2 sugars. Yeah, exactly. We should ask for a sponsorship. Hey, maybe we can hook David Pakman up with a Dunkin' Donuts sponsorship now to make up for the fleeing advertisers. We'll see if we can bring them in. Yeah, exactly. He's a Boston guy. Dunkin' is big up there. Like New England, there's a Dunkin'. Every few blocks there's a Dunkin'.
Every few blocks there's one.
Yeah. You can't drive half a mile without seeing like 2 or 3 Dunkin' Donuts. It's crazy. Yeah, so that'd be a great sponsor for him. He's a Boston guy. Why not? You know, he's falling on hard times now. You know. Yeah, he's only taken in, I think, like, you know, $23,000 a month on his shitty YouTube channel now. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, this gets into some more theoretical stuff. But of course, Bernie opened with the fact that Howard Schultz is a multi-billionaire. And at a certain point in the hearing, Schultz wanted to make known his offense at being called a billionaire as if it was a pejorative term. Let's hear him on that.
The last thing you said, and it's been said many times by the chairman, I just want to make a point of that. This monarch of billionaire, let's just get at that, okay? I grew up in federally subsidized housing. Let me finish. I grew up in federally subsidized housing. My parents never owned a home. I came from nothing. I thought my entire life was based on the achievement of the American dream.
Oh, suck my dick.
I have billions of dollars. I earned it. No one gave it to me.
I earned it.
Shared it constantly with the people of. I earned it. No one gave it to me, and I've shared it constantly with the people of Starbucks. And so anyone who keeps labeling this billionaire thing, it's
Mr. Schultz, I don't mean to cut you off. We have time limits here, and you have the opportunity. I'm not cutting you off.
It's your moniker constantly. It's unfair.
No, it is not. You have had more time. I've been generous with
he just wants him to shut up. Like that's vintage Bernie there. Like that is Bernie at his best, as big a disappointment as he's been in so many ways. That is him at his best. That's a real like, yeah, good, okay moment. Like, all right, thank you very much. Enough for the side story. We're out of time here. We have to keep this moving. And then when he says, you know, it's not fair that you use this moniker, he says, no, it is fair. You've had a lot of time to speak. Like Schultz wasn't saying it's not fair that I don't have time to speak. He's like, it's not fair that you're insulting me. And Bernie's like, no, it's fair. You've had your time. Okay, that's it. You know, that's it. Wrap this up. Just the I earned it, like the idea that they are trying to make this a justice issue, right? Like that billionaires are actually want us to feel like we have a moral obligation to allow them to keep the vast majority of their worth. It's just astounding. And the idea that he earned it, I'm sorry, nobody earns $1 billion. You don't earn $1 billion. You can earn $1 million. And then once you earn the $1 million, the money is what grows your net worth. It's not work at that point. That's why it's called capitalism, because capital is used to grow more capital. So the more capital you have, the easier it is to build more capital on top of it. That's why it's called capitalism, because the capital is what does the work for you. The capital is what earns you the money, not the work. It's not called hard workism. It's called capitalism. You use the money you have to make more.
Hard workism.
Hard workism. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that should be our label.
I mean, I was just going to say, like, as far as like the whole, like, I mean, FDR is like kind of always quoted as being like, I saved capitalism or else we could have had a revolution. Like, it does kind of surprise me sometimes that our ruling class is just so stupid that if they just put someone up like Howard Schultz on a stage and just let commoners come in and boo him, I mean, that would probably also save capitalism, and you wouldn't even have to give people Social Security or anything. Like, I just kind of feel if we were just generally able to boo these people, we would be happy enough. And that's the kind of energy that Bernie gives in those moments, you know, where he just kind of shames them, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's extraordinary. I'll just play this. There's no sound here, but there's a shot here where you see, you see workers in the audience who are clearly in dire straits.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you have this fucking filthy pig up there talking about how he doesn't deserve to be spoken to in an insulting way for being a billionaire because he earned it. Meanwhile, you have these poor people sitting right behind you who are trying to negotiate a union contract so they can get the benefits, which you try to wiggle out of not giving them by saying, well, we don't know what the law is. You can ratify a contract, at which point the benefits are part of that contract. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, and you know that. And to weasel out of it and then get all indignant about how insulted you are that he's calling you a billionaire with a bad attitude, like it's just stunning, really stunning.
Yeah, it's the idea, like, for me, that it allegedly that if you grew up poor and made your way, he just made it seem like I worked hard to get where I'm at, and everyone else should too.
Virtuous.
Yeah.
Well, no, that is
virtuous person.
Right. That is the ethos, Colin, that you touched on. It's like these entrepreneurs, these grinders, these guys who, at one point in their life, I don't think he does this anymore, but I'm sure at one point in his life for a fairly sustained period of time, Howard Schultz got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and worked his ass off all day until 11 o'clock at night and did that 7 days a week for years. And they think that because they did that anyone who doesn't do that also is not worthy of a good life, because they've put all this life in, they've put all this work in. So they actually internalize the idea that that is what it takes to deserve a level of comfort and stability in your life. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're just willing to punch a clock and mix my drinks for 8 hours and punch a clock again and go home 5 days a week, then you're a nobody. You're a loser.
Yeah.
Right? You don't deserve whatever, $22 an hour. You don't deserve benefits. You don't deserve the right to collective bargaining. How dare you ask us for more? You're
Because
just a
you
cog
didn't-
in machine. Right.
And you didn't work as hard as I did. That's
Exactly.
the idea.
Exactly. Yep. No, that's
He
exactly
earned
how
the
they
right
think.
to exploit other people because he was exploited.
Right. And because he paid his dues at the front end is, how he would think of it. Absolutely. 100%. It's just a totally perverse way of looking at other people, right? I mean, it's just a completely inhuman way. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's the curse of capitalism, after all. That's the mentality of it all.
All right. Well, let's do our final segment of
the one
the
everyone's
evening
been waiting
here.
for.
The one you've all...
Multiple questions in the audience, like, what did Pakman do?
I know, there's all these questions. What did David Pakman do? We got to get to the...
Stop wearing sweaters.
Yeah, no, he really is the type to put the sweater over the collared shirt. Makes
Yeah.
total sense.
And like
Well
leave
coordinated.
and not even have the wherewithal to like, he's trying to be cool, so he leaves the collar tucked into the sweater. You know, he doesn't even like really bring the collar out, like to really pronounce it.
Folks, hit that like button, please. Hit that subscribe button before you get out of here. We're going to be doing one more segment here, but it is a fairly substantial one. On March 27th, a horrific shooting occurred at a Presbyterian parochial school in Nashville, Tennessee, in which 6 people were killed, including 3 children. And that afternoon, progressive, quote-unquote, media personality David Pakman tweeted the following. Very surprising that there would be a mass shooting at a Christian school, given that lack of prayer is often blamed for these horrible events. Is it possible they weren't praying enough or correctly despite being a Christian school? You know, it honestly hurts to even read that out loud. Like, it obviously makes me feel a little dirty for even reading it out loud. But after he tweeted that, he received severe backlash. These tweets got really epically ratioed. And so a few hours later, he comes back with, all right, too many anti-Semitic attacks and threats to my family. I've deleted the tweet. Now, look, obviously it should go without saying, but in this business, you can't let anything go without saying. Slurs and threats are obviously out of bounds no matter what. So obviously
Did Marcel
we would
try
never...
to talk to him about reparations?
Yeah, did Marcel tweet him about reparations? Is that why he went there? But yeah, look, obviously slurs and threats are obviously out of bounds. We would never, ever condone any of that. And so I certainly don't wish that for him. But he got a lot of backlash that was perfectly legitimate, a little bit from me, a little bit from Colin. Colin's got to him a little more than mine, since I still have not had the honor of being blocked by David Pakman. I'm a little insulted about that. But what I tweeted back at him was, look, well, first of all, let me just keep going here because I'm getting out a little bit in front of myself. I want to keep this in order so it's not confusing, because apparently some in the audience don't know fully what we're talking about quite yet. So I want to spell this out as clearly as I can. So the next morning, prominent conservatives joined the sort of ratio, most notably, of course, Don Jr. and Candace Owens. So Candace Owens puts up a quote tweet here: still no apology for mocking the Christian children at the school where the massacre occurred for praying. Instead, he at first blamed anti-Semitism and is now accusing the people who were rightfully horrified by this tweet of being leftists. I don't understand. You cannot make this up. I don't quite understand that. He at first blamed it and now accusing the people of being leftists. You cannot make this up. Okay, I don't understand that tweet. That's not the first statement of Candace Owens I don't quite understand. Well, I'll let that go. Don Jr., much more direct, chip off the old block, right? Takes after his father. A little easier to understand. Imagine being this big of a POS. Unfortunately, this is what many of the left think of if you have traditional American views and don't follow blindly and capitulate to their every lunatic whim. Truly evil at this point. So Pakman then deleted the tweet in which he announced he deleted the original tweet.
Okay.
So he deleted both of those tweets that I showed you earlier, right?
Right.
So then the next day, he decides not to just take the L and leave it alone. He records a YouTube video and puts out a YouTube video about the response overnight to his tweets. He put out about a 5-minute version, but he did thankfully cut together a short version, which he published to Shorts. So we're going to play that version here. This is only a minute long, thankfully, but here's, again, tripling down on these tweets.
Angrier about my if you're angrier about my tweet regarding yesterday's shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, than you are about the fact that 6 people, including 3 kids, are now dead as a result of that shooting, then we have a real problem here. I support people who pray if they want to pray, praying, if that's important to them. But it doesn't prevent shootings. And so when elected officials offer nothing more than thoughts and prayers, and then we have another shooting and another one, and they continue to offer nothing more than thoughts and prayers, they were the target of my ire, not the victims of the shooting. And that I stand by 100%. Anyone who knows me knows I would never blame the victims of a mass shooting for that mass shooting. Thoughts and prayers are fine, but we have to go beyond it.
Okay, so what he's saying is that his tweet was a knock on the thoughts and prayers conservatives who offer thoughts and prayers as a stand-in for policy solutions once the shooting happens. I'll refer you to this once again.
Right.
Let's look at this. Is it possible they weren't praying enough? This happened at a Christian school, and is it possible they weren't praying enough or correctly despite being a Christian school? This is quite obviously directed at the school and the people in the school. This is not directed at the thoughts and prayers peddling politicians. There are millions of liberals who, every time a shooting happens, go on riffs about the thoughts and prayers people. They don't get this kind of attention because this is different. And so what I tweeted at him, I don't have a graphic for this, but I said, listen, I will take you at your word that you didn't mean this as a knock on the victims, even though, if I'm being completely honest, I don't really take him at his word at that. But I will, for the sake of conversation, take you at your word on that. The thing to do is to come out and apologize for your poor choice of words, because it is very obvious that this, at the very least, can very reasonably be construed as a sarcastic, sort of atheistic dig on a school. Well, I guess you picked the wrong religion, huh? Because your prayers didn't stop this from happening. That's how this tweet reads. It's obvious. I mean, the level of gaslighting is just incredible. That's so obvious what the tweet says.
And like my tweet that I responded to him today, which triggered him, because there were a couple other people was like, he had a right to say this. And I was like, wait a minute. If he was talking about conservatives, that would be one thing. You can make that argument. But he didn't say conservatives here. He said Christians. So it's the idea of like generalizing the idea of like all Christians just pray, and because of the shooting that, you know, it's Christians' fault. I can very much tell you I grew up in the church. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Christian in that way anymore. I grew up in the church. I know plenty of Christians who do not believe in this. Number one. Number two, he kind of, and I'm glad I saw like the short, like I was thinking about watching like his response to this, but I'm like, I don't want to give you the view, dude. Like you basically dug your hole. But, you know, I'm kind of glad I saw it just to kind of give the context to see what he actually said. And you are kind of, based on this tweet, you know, shaming the victims instead of shaming the politicians that have basically allowed this to continue. And I've said this many times. Sandy Hook should have been it.
Right.
Really.
Of course.
We really should not be here at this point. Decades, over a decade later in regards to school shootings. Sandy Hook should have been done right now. But at least once a year since then, we've had this going on. And you know, and the children are just getting younger and younger and younger and younger. I made a kind of sarcastic joke one time, like eventually it's going to happen in the preschool. You know, that's where it's heading to, sadly. And I noticed like very quickly, you know, he listed off all these conservative people who are like thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. I didn't see one, and we would have to check. I didn't see one Democrat who basically saying the same mess. And these are the same Democrats who are funding Ukraine and funding all these wars, and we are shooting children in those countries, but we don't care about that. And not to say we shouldn't care about these children here, but I just feel like, and I said this to Dave, like, you know better than that, and you're a lot smarter than that. Like, if you wanted to call out conservatives, that's one thing. I can go with you for that, but you have to kind of go all the way and kind of call out the party that you allegedly don't support, but you really do, in terms of the inaction in the last 2 years in regards to this issue. Democrats have not done shit. And we're seeing like Jamal Bowman, like going off at was it Massey?
Massey, yeah.
You know, regarding this, like.
Yeah, no, I mean that
like,
was just so clearly a contrived moment. It's
Right.
like, you know, I mean that looked like a bad play. It looked like bad acting.
Yeah, so it's just like that's what I was saying to Dave, and that's why he blocked me. It was just the idea of like, you know better. Like, if you wanted to call out conservatives, call out conservatives, but don't call out Christians who are essentially the victims in this. Like,
yeah, I mean, this just embodies what this does is it plays right into the stereotype of the smug, self-satisfied, sarcastic, above it all, elitist, intellectual,
right,
coastal liberal. That
Right.
you would take this as a dig because that's what it is. Is it possible they weren't praying enough or correctly despite being a Christian school? That is directed at the school. It's directed at the school. It's not saying thoughts and prayers don't work. It's taunting them for praying incorrectly or perhaps to the wrong God, which is, yeah, I mean, that is an obscene thing to do in any context, especially the afternoon that 6 people were gunned down, including 3 kids. I mean, it's just really, it's an incredibly insensitive thing to say. And, you know, as someone who often takes chances with the jokes that I crack, you know, if I ever step over in that way and I think about it, I will apologize for it. Like, you can just apologize. You could just say, hey, you could even try and, like I said, I would grant you the deniability that you meant it as a dig on the conservative politicians, even though I shouldn't, right? But I could give you that if you said, hey, listen, I fired off 30,000 tweets in my life. Sometimes I fire off a bad one that comes out wrong, and that's on me. That's all you got to say. That's all you got to say.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you're going to mention this, but part of my tweet today was because I saw that he gained subs from this.
Oh, well, we're going to get to I'm not done playing video of his. You're going to be really upset at the next one I play.
Okay.
Yeah, but go ahead, Tusker.
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Colin. If you're done,
go ahead,
and then Tusker.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say... I've been seeing some of the comments in the chat. All right. This is not giving cover to Republicans. Not all Christians are Republicans.
Right.
Okay. Christian does not equal Republican. Just like a black person doesn't equal Democrat. Just like however it is that we assign these identities to people. Like, we have to get that out of our head. These were children that were in this school. I don't care what religion they were. Just like I don't care if whenever we go and bomb Iraq and kill children over there, I don't care if they're Muslim. And I don't care if these children are Christian. The simple fact of the matter is there is another way to get back at the thoughts and prayers constituency all the time. And you do not have to impugn the children and the school itself for not praying hard enough and for not being virtuous enough. Right. That has nothing to do with it.
What he's saying is prayer doesn't work, and aren't these people stupid for praying, thinking that it's going to protect them? That's what I mean by being just a smug, sarcastic bastard. Yeah.
Exactly, and he is dehumanizing these individuals. Do I agree with Christians on everything? No. Do I think that they should be shot? No. All right, that's what we're talking about. It is not providing coverage for Republicans or the right wing or anything like that.
And
we're talking about lives that were lost.
And to go off of that, and I'll say it again, you know, it's not just Republicans who say thoughts and prayers.
Yep.
It's Democrats too. This is very much an elite versus poor issue. Because the elites don't have to worry about this. Because they have the cops on their side basically to protect them. No one's protecting us. So that's why I got so pissed off at Pakman. He should know that and should know better than that. But the way he phrased it, it was kind of like an attack on the lower class versus him. I would argue he wouldn't say as much, but you acted like an elite here. So, and given your position, if I said shit like that, cancel.
Right.
You know, like immediately. I wouldn't have the grace necessary. And there are people like that I saw on Twitter basically defending his whatever. But I know if it were me, I cannot get away with saying anything like that, which I think really infuriated me, because especially being a person of color, I have to be careful of everything I say. And the fact that David said this and then he got rewarded for it with more subs.
Yeah.
Well, he got rewarded for it because some friends of his in this indie media space, including one Kyle Kalinske, made a video defending him. And of course, that had the effect of steering some of Kyle's subs over to him, right? Because they watched that and they figure, oh, let me go support David Pakman, who is perhaps the most boring of all of the YouTube commentators. I said in the past, David Pakman makes Kyle look like Andrew Dice Clay. Like, he is such a boring man.
At least Kyle
His
has
show is
fun beer.
Yeah.
But it is just, I mean, it's just amazing that you would go there. And I see some people in the chat, you know, obviously the gun debate comes up whenever you're talking about this. And, you know, when you talk about, you know, providing cover to the right wing, Colin said Sandy Hook should have been the end of this issue. So how is that providing cover for the right wing, right? I mean, that's as clear an argument for sensible gun control as you can make. And I know some people are against that. You know, on the populist left side of things, we run into some people who are obviously more on the Second Amendment side of things than some others in this space might be. And I'm not anti-Second Amendment, but I do think when you look at the repeal of the assault weapons ban and the subsequent inflation in these mass shootings, it's not reasonable to say that guns are not a part of the equation. But by part of the equation, what I mean by that is not what the libs mean by that, which is go take everybody's guns away and then everything will be fine. What I mean by guns are part of the equation is guns are part of a uniquely violent and militaristic culture that we have here in this country. Guns are a symptom of that. They're neither the cause of that or the effect of that. We have a violent culture, which then lends itself to people thinking that because we are such a violent frontier imperial power and a frontier culture within that power, they feel like because the culture is so violent, they need to arm up. And then when they arm up, what happens? The country becomes more violent because now we have all these guns in circulation. And as the country becomes more violent, then more people feel like they have to arm themselves. This is all documented. You see every time, you know, Democrats win a race at a statewide race that's a swing state, what happens to gun sales in that state? They shoot through the roof. What happens when mass shootings happen? Guns sales go up. People arm up when they feel the society is more violent, and buying more guns and keeping more guns in circulation, therefore, then contributes to the violence that's already out there. So guns are not where the problem begin and end, but they are certainly a part of it. They are a symptom of it. And removing guns from the streets, certainly removing guns from the hands of mentally ill people who could not pass a background check or should have no business carrying a gun, is that going to cure the disease? No, but it is going to result in symptom management, and symptom management is a worthwhile endeavor, right? Like, it is good to treat symptoms, even if you can't cure the disease itself. So that's where I fall on that. So anyway, I felt like I should address that. That's the elephant in the room. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, I disagree with you on like Second Amendment issues, but I mean, that doesn't preclude me from like talking to you or having a reasonable discussion with you, you know?
Yeah.
So like, let's move on. Agree to disagree. Cool.
Yeah.
Very easy, guys.
Yeah. I'm just like, I grew up in Europe. Like, I grew up in the UK. There's no guns there. And knives there. Actually, knives carry more than guns. But, like, I'm of the thought of, why does anyone need a gun? That's kind of just my personal take. But thinking about it, it kind of makes sense given our culture, and especially kind of how this country came into being. It came into being based on violence. And we have not been able to shake that in close to 300 years. So the idea, Keen, that you mentioned that people need guns in order to feel this kind of safety, that in of itself is a problem. Like, why don't we feel safe? Like, why would people need to think like this even happened in my own family. Like, you know, like when I was younger, like my house got broken into and I happened to be in the house and there was like a whole thing. It was the idea of like getting a dog or a gun. Fortunately, we settled on the dog, but it was the idea of like, why don't we feel safe in our own country where we feel we have to arm ourselves?
Well, what Chris Hedges talks about a lot, and Russell has mentioned this on the air before, is that what a country does to people around the world, it will ultimately do to its own people, right? And so when you talk about growing up in Europe, how nobody had guns, look at what's going on in France right now. We did a segment on this in our last show. There is a populist uprising in France going on right now, and there are clashes with the cops there, but those uprisings are winning, and in the end, I think they are going to win when it's all said and done. They're not armed. They didn't need guns to go ahead and disrupt the system through mass popular movements. Now, you could say, well, the cops there aren't armed either. Yes, they are. Some of them are. Not all of them are, but some of them are. Certainly many of them who are cracking down on these mass uprisings now
or at
are
least
armed.
Not with the gear that we have here.
Well, that's the thing. That's the rub, because France is not the dominant imperial power that has its foot on the neck of peoples around the world, and they do not enforce their will around the world in the same way that we do. And so because we are the police of the world, our police, they reflect the military itself. That's why we call it a militarized force, right? They act as an occupying army in a lot of cities around here, to the point where, if we in America didn't have guns and we tried doing what they're doing in France right now, we would get crushed by the cops, because we do have a force here that mimics the might of the military, right? Talk about doing to its own people what we do to people around the world. So that's where it becomes a situation where people feel like they need weapons here to defend against this oppressive state, because here, the state that's used to control us is very, very similar in form to the apparatus that controls people all around the world, right? Well, and that's where I think that's where the guns do fit into that whole situation there.
As far as the gun issue goes, that's kind of how I feel about, people get guns to be safe. Well, you know why people have the need to feel safe? Because essentially your government doesn't care about you.
Yeah.
That's right. What it is. This is what is driving all of this type of stuff. This is what is driving people to take matters into their own hands and do whatever. It's because you have a government that doesn't respond to you. Totally captured. It's not a democracy. It's nothing like that. And so what else are people left to do? That is what I feel like drives a lot of this. And then you put that into the hands of people that are willing to go and shoot up a school. There you go. Mass shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't have that, an entire society feel like the government doesn't care about them and not have these issues happen.
Right. I'm all for defense, taking care of yourself and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for that, but this seems to be, I think, especially in this country, a unique problem where it's bloated to the point where there are more guns than people. Like, if that's the case, we need to really examine as to why. And I think, Tusker, you hit the nail on the head. This is all aligned to government. This is all aligned to capitalism at the end of the day. And I saw people in the chat were like, you need to read Marx. I know what Malcolm X and Marx have said, in regards to, defense and all of that. I agree to a point, but we also have to understand the idea of like why that was necessary to begin with. And it hasn't changed significantly, especially from when X was assassinated. It's gone worse.
Right.
So
it's only increased its divide and conquer tactic.
Right. And especially and I was at the George Floyd protest and I saw firsthand what the police were capable of doing. And they weren't doing as nearly as much as they could have done.
Right.
So do you really want that to be our default, if not worse, moving down the road within the next decade or so? Because that's what's happening. And especially with the elites, if they kind of see stuff like this, is going to make them feel, oh, you know, we really need to protect ourselves. So they're going to continue to fund the police more. They're going to give them more toys. They're going to throw money to the military-industrial complex, and they're able to create, like, Reef and I, like, did a segment a few weeks ago, and he showed me, like, and Reef, you have to tell me again where it was from, but it was like a short film. But essentially, it was true to life that even terrified the hell out of me. But there were drones, basically the size of your hand, that were capable of killing people. You know, all they had was a camera, which the technology we have is right there. You know, so it's not to say, like, again, it was a short film, but the idea of that was very real, especially given how militarized our military is and how much more AI is becoming more of a thing. So these are essentially smart technologies that the government is funding to basically nuke out anyone that they really want. And they can do it quickly and without much mess at all, really. The technology is there, but this is what it's leading to in the idea of, like, protecting ourselves. That's not the kind of protecting that I necessarily buy in terms of this. And, like, all these school shootings play into that.
I don't either. I believe in protecting the class. Like,
right.
That's the issue. Instead, the ruling elite have us obsessed with the Second Amendment and protecting ourselves. And they have us all training our guns on each other. And I'm not saying violent overthrow of the government. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's pointed. It's the Spider-Man meme. Once again, everyone's pointing at each other. And that's not where the enemy is.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to do it with guns. You can do it with mass action. You can do it with mutual aid. You can do it with organizing. You can do it with, you know, labor unions. You can do all of those types of things to erode the class power that is so entrenched and that is setting everyone against each other. It doesn't have to be violent.
I want to put this up because Red Zeep had a good comment here. He says, nobody likes school shootings. Nobody likes shootings. Yeah, look, that's where it really comes down to when it comes to the Pakman stuff. And we have a little bit more of Pakman. Like, grief is universal, right? Grief is a universal experience. There aren't people out there who, no matter what you think of their views, and you could think not only their views are bad, but you can actually think that their views are making the problem worse, right? There are people with political views that make certain problems worse, right? If we didn't think that were true, we wouldn't be politically engaged, because what would the point be of convincing people to change their views into ours, right? But you can at the same time recognize that grief and loss and suffering, these are just universal human experiences that are felt by everyone, regardless of what their views on these issues are. And that's why that tweet, I think, hurt a lot of people as badly as it did. Because it just invalidated the grief that certain people are feeling because you have an intellectual sort of disposition about you that says that their grief is invalid because they brought it upon themselves by not being smart enough to know that there is no God answering their prayers. And that's just an extraordinarily, cruel and insensitive thing to say to anybody in any context, I would argue, especially given the timing.
He had some political points to score.
Right,
and
exactly.
he used the death of those children and those families as a backboard to score those points.
Exactly. Yep, 100%. All right, so a few days after...
I need another
Back to the bar. Here, while she's doing that, let me knock out a couple of these chats. This will disrupt the flow a little bit, but I'll edit it when we're doing the clips. Reefer, I'm assuming this is your friend and colleague, Reef Breland, and our friend as well, friend of the show, Reef Breland. Thank you for the $10, my friend. Thanks for having my co-host and INN friend Care Bear on the show. Love to have you on INN News, Tusker. Oh, well, we'll let her know when she gets back. In fact, I don't know if Tusker is using headphones or not. She may even be able to hear us now. But yeah, Reef would like Tusker on INN. Yeah, we got to get Tusker more involved. You know, her reviews are always excellent, which is very difficult in this space, as Colin, you know. It's very difficult to do this regularly and not piss off a ton of people, but she manages to do it. I don't know how. Cool Blue 199. Thank you for the donation. Pakman should be campaign advisor for Marianne. Yeah.
I thought that one made me. It was right in a serious moment, and I saw that and I was like. It made me giggle so hard.
Justin says, I'm not into cancel culture, but isn't it time that Pakman was canceled? I knew he was a POS after he smeared Jill Stein to justify his bootlicking of Hillary. Look, I'm against canceling people. You know, I'm pretty much a free speech absolutist, especially in spaces like this. That's not to say people shouldn't, not follow his channel anymore if they don't like what he says. But like, in terms of any sort of like coordinated big tech crackdown on him, no, I would be strongly opposed to that on principle. But that's not to say that, people shouldn't factor these comments in when sort of choosing which shows to watch, his or ours or Colin's, right? That would be my answer there. Axel, thanks for the $2 again. Sandy Hook was the end of the debate on the issue. Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and that's a grim point, but it's a good one. Like, yeah, that was the end. We thought that was going to be the end in a good way. It turned out to be the end in a not so good way, because I think a lot of people just gave up after that.
Gave up. Yeah.
Yeah. Pakman as a thoroughly an arrogant elitist. Yes. Thank you, Cool Blue. Once again, thank you guys for your generosity tonight, helping us keep the lights on, as they say. Just making sure I didn't miss any more. I think I got everybody taken care of. Beautiful, very active chat here as always. What's that?
We'll find a whole new group of people to cancel. Just you wait.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. But a few days went by after he made that video in which he not only did not apologize for his tweet, but seemed to triple down, right? And I say triple down because he doubled down with the defiant non-apology follow-up tweet. So a few days after this sort of dismissal of people's concerns and the grief of people involved in this horrible tragedy, didn't play well with some of his advertisers. Now, I want to be very clear what I mean by his advertisers. We're not talking about the YouTube advertisers, because he didn't say what he said on YouTube. He said it on Twitter, so he didn't get penalized by YouTube for saying what he said. But, he hawks some of the bullshit products that you get to hawk when you get a certain amount of followers. Actually, Jimmy Dore started doing it now. I tuned into his show yesterday, selling green juice or whatever.
I heard.
What was it, a superfood or whatever? I mean, hey, look, whatever. Do what you got to do, right? No judgment there. But those are who we mean when we say the advertisers. Some of the advertisers are starting to pull out, right? And so a few days after some advertisers have started to pull out, he posts another video to his page urging his viewers to step in and help him compensate for the loss of ad revenue. I can see Colin's going to love this. Well, let's play a brief snippet of this video.
Got emails from multiple. We already got emails from multiple advertisers saying we are pausing advertising. Pausing means it's over. Okay. This is the most desperate situation we have ever had over right-wingers desperate not to deal with gun safety, because understand that that's what this is. They would rather focus on anything other than gun safety regulations to prevent shootings in the future. That's what this is about. And so instead, they're going after me. They're more angry about a tweet I sent saying thoughts and prayers do nothing to stop shootings than they are about the dead kids. And now they're going after my advertisers rather than...
Because once again, just making this point again, that he was going after the thoughts and prayers people and not, right? So it just keeps on with that. But here we go.
Than trying to fix the problem. So what you can do, number one, write to our advertisers, the ones you see at the end of videos, write to them and say, please keep advertising with David. The people emailing you angry.
Right. Write to them and get them to keep me. Dear Blue Chew, my dick works fine. I don't need pills, but I'm urging you to maintain your sponsorship on the David Pakman Show because he didn't really mean what Don Trump Jr. said he meant. So, send them an email really urging them
the email so
to keep
I
and roll.
can get paid, that I can keep my house.
Right.
I can keep my livelihood.
You know what I think all of his advertisers are? It's all those like meal plans. Like, I don't think he stepped outside of his house for 5 years.
Yeah, the what's it called? The Blue Apron and all that stuff like that.
Yeah. Like he just, and then he waits. He doesn't even like answer the delivery man and like take it. He just waits for them to walk all the way away.
All the way back.
Cuddle in and just back into the cave. And then he goes back on there like, guys, I need money. I need help.
Oh, here we go. Here's more.
Aren't even his viewers, nor are they your customers. Second, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If we can weather this with a big increase in subscribers at a time when the right is trying to end us, it would be huge. And the most important thing is we have to replace that revenue. This is no longer theoretical. This is not.
The most important thing is we have to replace that revenue. This is no longer theoretical.
It's nicer to get support from the audience because then no one person can. Well, listen, we have a mix of support from different sources. Advertisers are one of those. And one person can say, we're cutting the campaign. And that's what's happening with a number of these campaigns. It is not theoretical. Help us make up for a slice of what these right-wing radicals have taken away through the ad campaigns. You go to joinpakman.com. We have a coupon code. The code is cancel. Cancel the cancelers who say, don't cancel people. They are the ones who say, don't use these techniques. Don't contact advertisers demanding what they are now doing it.
There you have it.
What the fuck is this?
I'm trying to get my
cancel. All right, now listen, let me just tell you guys something, okay? I'm not saying this to be braggadocious. I mean, and it's actually you guys really helped us get here, right? We interviewed Matt Taibbi last week. We've been clipping portions of those interviews and publishing them as their own segments. One of them really caught fire and got about 50,000 views. That's a monetized video, right? So it got 50,000 views, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say exactly how much we took in on ads for that video. I don't know if there's a policy where we can't reveal the internal YouTube stuff, but I could say we did pretty well on that video. Well enough to the point where I can tell you, if you consistently publish videos that get 50,000 views and are monetized, as Pakman surely does, because he has 1.6 million subscribers, you are going to make bank on YouTube without the green juice sponsoring you for the on-air ad reads, right? Because the YouTube ads are separate. Point is, this guy is rolling in it. He's still rolling in it. This guy still makes a tremendous amount of money from the YouTube ads, and not to mention the super chats when he goes live. Not to mention, I'm sure he has a good subscription network. I don't know what he uses, Patreon, something like that. This guy's making plenty of fucking money to the point where if a few of his on-air ad reads bail over this, that does not put him at risk of loss of house and home. He's doing great, and the fact that you don't understand. I'm not trying to do a Vanguard style pile on here because of just the context in which this is all happening. It's almost too dark to enjoy doing this, right? Virtuoso, what'd you do? You left? I was going to admit you in a second. All right. Come back. Call back. But it was, so I don't mean it in that way, but I'm just saying, you sent the tweet. You had an opportunity to say you were sorry for an obviously terrible tweet. You then posted a second tweet not apologizing for that. You then took that down and posted a video not apologizing for either of those tweets. And then 3 days later, you create a coupon code for people to go and subscribe to your whatever membership thing is to give you money for whatever loss in revenue that you have to make up. You do a show by yourself. You don't have a Russell Dobular that you got to split the shit with, right? You're doing it yourself here, and you lose a couple of, like I said, green juice accounts on your ad reads, and you got to make it this desperate thing where you got to help us make that revenue back. You ever hear of just taking a loss, making a mistake and taking a loss? Again, I do not believe you should be canceled or deplatformed. None of that. I would be strongly, strongly opposed to any of those measures. But that doesn't mean you can't take a little bit of a knock on the chin for doing this. The idea that you come to your viewers and desperate, go here, I created a coupon code, 20% off, cancel. It's only $6 a month. Come on, we have to make that up, please. Come on. I mean, that's just a pathetic look.
This is why I said earlier on Twitter, this is why independent media ain't shit. This is why.
Right.
Because this is straight out of the Breaking Point's TYT playbook. They fuck up, and we have to support them for the losses.
No.
If even one of us, that like Keen, you and I, like who does this on a regular, if we fuck up like that and we're way smaller, right, we won't have a channel.
Exactly. That's why I watch what I say on this channel.
We know so many of our colleagues in this space who get strikes constantly. YouTube not monetized. We go through all sorts of shit for very basic stuff, and then even stuff that is viable, that has been proven to be correct, but because it's counter to what the mainstream media wants us to kind of promote, that they knock us out.
Right.
David Pakman, for all intents and purposes, made a big mistake. And instead of just fucking apologize and take the hit, you'll be just fine. And you're fucking rewarded for it, number one, because he got more subs out of it. But then he expects people like his audience to counter for him by giving him more money? No.
Yeah, no.
That bothers me.
If he loses an advertiser, he might actually have to go to the grocery store. And that means stepping outside the apartment.
I mean, like I said, the guy, I mean, he's a wealthy guy. This is a wealthy guy. If you have 1.6 million subscribers on YouTube and you're publishing content that consistently, that's getting the kind of views that he gets, you're doing extremely well, doing not that much work, honestly. You clip a video of a pre-recorded live stream or whatever, you put it out there, you could make, I mean, you could be taking in serious money per clip. And I'm sure he does.
And I'm sure David has helped to do all of his shit for his show. Like, you know, like, Keen, I know you do this on your own as far as clipping and all that kind of stuff. We're very fortunate that we have volunteers at INN. They're not paid,
right?
You know, to do some of the work for us, like some of the editing, some of the cutting. Like, I'm the one who's looking for the stories and clipping them, and like that's extra work that I have to do on top of my actual job.
Right.
And I'm not making really the money that Pakman is.
Right.
And he's begging for followers and money because of a mistake he made. Fuck him.
But also, Colin, to your point, like this is one of the issues with independent media. Like the breaking points, like all of those things that claim to be independent, but for some strange reason, they always sound just like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC light. Right. Every single time they screw up, how many resources and how much time do you guys, not me, I just transitioned, I'm just here, you know, just for one night, you know, like how much time is just wasted on having to refute the bullshit that they end up putting out into the political sphere. And that's really what the problem is with people like Pakman. You know, he gives a bad name to independent media because he is groveling. He is groveling at the feet of his masters. He's let me get my 100,000 subscribers to write you a letter and say no, please. He's a good person. He doesn't mean it.
He's not groveling to them. He's groveling to us. That makes it worse.
Exactly.
Exactly.
He's groveling to us. He's not going to them and being like, oh, you know, help me out or whatever. He he just said it's gone. They're not going to get him back. So what does he have to do? He has to turn to his audience to supplement his salary.
He has to incite in his audience an emotional response in order to get them to go and do the groveling for him.
And again, he went into, it's the right wing, it's the Republicans, they're causing this, blah, 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 and like trying to wrap up their liberal base to feel sorry for him that they would. Again, David, Democrats have been in power for 2 fucking years. What have they done in terms of gun violence? Not a damn thing. So if you're going to call them out, call all of them out.
Yeah,
and stop groveling to your audience for more money.
No, exactly.
Tucker, you're right. He gives us all a bad name who actually do need the money to try and do the work that we have to do all by ourselves.
Yeah, and who have things at stake. Like, if we were to get screwed by any of these platforms, it would really hurt to the point where, by the way, Zach, you put up a super chat earlier, and I had it, and then I lost it. So you can put it in again as a free chat, and I will flag it. Zach Boyles, don't pay us again, but just put it back in as a free chat, and I'll read it. I apologize. I just lost track of it, and now I can't find it for the life of me. But anyway, point being, right there, point being, like we actually do have a lot riding on this. And I'm not saying Pakman doesn't, but Pakman didn't get demonetized. Pakman didn't get deplatformed. He had a couple of fucking, Blue Apron fucking whatever. Hey, use coupon code boring douchebag at checkout to save 20% on your, next meal, right? Whatever. Like, that's what he lost. He lost the color. It's not the end of the fucking world. And you wouldn't have even done that if you just had the humility to say you were fucking sorry for what was obviously an offensive tweet. Virtuoso, you're on the air.
Hey, Virtuoso.
Hi, Tusker. Hi, Colin. First time talking to you. What's up, man?
How you doing?
Yeah, so I'm good. So yeah, man. David's sack of shit, man. What can I say, man? He's been a huge disappointment these last few years. From the Palestinian thing to Evo Morales, the whole Cum Bolivia, to now this thing. I mean, and now he's
know better than me, man. I don't watch him. I find him incredibly boring.
Oh my God, this Tom Hartman understudy. It's just like it's just liquid. It's just liquid night. Yeah, this is just verbal NyQuil with this guy. And
that's good.
He should not.
Like that.
No, let me just say this: he should not be feeling like a victim for getting heat for what was a provocatively harsh tweet. Like, dog, even if you know that prayer doesn't work, it's unnecessary to be saying that.
Right.
It's tone deaf.
Right. It's tone deaf. I mean, look, yes, absolutely. I was going to say something. I don't even want to go. Look, I don't want to get too personal about it because of how dark the context of this whole thing is. Like, it's not even fun to dunk on him because of this. It's just awkward. And it's just like, how could you not just say you're sorry? It's the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, it costs you nothing.
Right.
It literally doesn't.
Right.
I mean,
that's what it costs you nothing. There's nothing. I mean, look, like I said, I thought it was a really, really nasty tweet. And so there are certain people who, depending on their proximity to this horrible event, are never going to forgive him for that. That's part of the game, right? But look, I understand as someone who hasn't been doing this that long that, whatever, you go on the air 8 hours a week, you fire off 100 tweets a week, you're going to fuck up sometimes. There's no shame in doing that. The shame is in being so up your own ass that you can't just acknowledge when you fuck up and just say you're sorry. Very simple.
Twitter's a little bit different. He keyboard pecked that out meticulously. Like, he had plenty of opportunities to stop himself, and he didn't do it.
Right.
I mean, he can basically afford with all that Blue Apron money he's getting, he can afford Twitter Blue and edit that shit.
Yeah, well, I think he has Twitter Blue.
He has
but now they're taking away Twitter Blue for people who don't pay. So they're going to have to pay Elon now.
But even with that, the response he did, it wasn't on Twitter. It was on YouTube. So essentially in that, he's trying to make money off of the wouldn't even call it an apology. It was like you're trying to monetize of whatever that was. So like, so again, it just shows how callous he is. Like,
right, and that's a good point.
I'm willing to make money off my non-apology.
Right. Exactly. I don't recall whether or not I saw ads on that, but that's something when you get monetized on YouTube, you can choose which videos to put ads on and which ones you don't want
Well,
to.
the
Like,
idea that he
like.
has the opportunity to do that on YouTube if he chose to, like, versus just saying, I'm sorry on Twitter or whatever, he's discussing that. But,
I'm sorry. I mean, it's essentially all you have to do is you have to say, I'm sorry. Innocent people died.
Exactly. I mean, like, look.
I did not respect the humanity and the death of those individuals, and I should have done better. Political debate and scoring points, we can do that at a later time. Also, thoughts and prayers.
Right. Yeah, right. So, I mean, look, that ship has probably sailed for him at this point, but it's still, I would say, even at this point, you're better off just saying you're sorry. And it's not going to play as well now because of how long it took and how many times you tried to disguise what you said as something else. But even so, like, this is not one of those times, like, this is not one of those takedown videos we're doing where, like, when the Vanguard, when they're dicks to Aaron Mate or when they're dicks to Colin, it's a lot of fun just, tearing them apart over it. The Kyle thing was a lot of fun. This isn't even fun because it's just, the whole thing has a sour taste to it. Because
I got to tell you, whenever Keaton, gave me the topics, I was just like, I took the wrong week to transition.
Yeah, right, exactly. You should have let Russell do this one as himself. Sorry, Colin, did you have anything to add?
No, again, he gives us a bad name, and as I said, it's like it sucks that there's this favoritism with YouTube in a sense that if you or I did something like that, even though it's Twitter, but like we'd be canceled right away, and we would be in deep shit for saying anything remotely close to that. And the fact that he can essentially get away with it due to, you can argue his class, you can maybe also argue his race as well. Like, it's just very much this elite, classist prick of a man that, that basically got away with the very thing that many of us do not have channels or demonetized permanently on this platform for something that he did on social media. I just find it very... It's the irony of it. I just find repulsive.
Zach, thank you for the $4.99. So I didn't lose the super chat after I found it. I assume that David guy went the likes of all the other poo-poo libs and are now Pfizer reps. Zach always tries to get, he always tempts the gods with his super chats. You're gonna like, but Zach is a patron, and thank you, Zach. And you're gonna like our next patron video, which is gonna drop tomorrow. It was a long one, but a good one, and I think you're gonna enjoy
and
it.
Virtuoso, was there anything else? Is Virtuoso still on the line?
Yep, he's still here.
Well, since we're on the subject of Twitter getting people in hot shit with other people, I actually wanted to talk very briefly about what Anna Kasparian said about yesterday about the whole birthing person term. Yeah. Uh-oh.
I'm kidding.
That's good. There he is. She was ready to leave the room for that topic. I know it's very uncomfortable, but I just want to say it's like, okay, all right. Yeah, this is a mansplaining topic. Sorry.
Right.
No, but did I just read the situation wrong when I felt like she initially just freaked out about that term, and I just felt like,
what term? What are you talking about?
Birthing person, the whole thing, and these medical terms that really are just temporary, and for some reason, I don't know. To me, she's kind of came off as reactionary. I hate to say that, but it's become kind of a label, but it is like I don't know where this energy came from. It's like she kind of woke up in cold sweat. after having a dream about having kids, because she doesn't have any children, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
she doesn't. But
she's vocal about not wanting them either.
Yeah, so it's kind of like yeah, you're kind of just like smelling your own farts here, trying to sound like you're above the topic of these terms, but are just they're just the way I look at it is they're very observant of trans people and what they're going through as far as childbirth, if that's even possible. But things of that nature should not apply to like law or anything that requires you to say that to somebody. And I don't think that's what's happening with Anna here. And so when Mike Figueredo tried to respond to her, I thought she was just trying to tell her to just calm down. It's really not that big of a deal. But it's not. I just don't feel like it's something to really get upset about, because it's really the left. It's become a war of words, and not a war of class in this country.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think you're right about that. I mean, she's a drama queen for sure. But we did cover this last week, so I don't want to take too much time on it. But sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, love to hear your thoughts.
Because this is virtuous. I agree with you. I'm much more interested in the class dynamic of everything. Okay. Like this type of stuff normally does not interest me. And I also absolutely 100% support trans rights. People that are trans do not deserve to be abused, dehumanized, to have their rights taken away. I 100% support them to exist and to have their rights. However, one of the things that I dislike about the wooden language that is being used as far as birthing person, I, as a woman, it is rare that I ever even consider my uterus. Rarely ever think about it, and it seems very odd to me that we are almost reduced down to a body part capability, much like if only men had gallbladders. And then you said bile producers.
Right.
It's very, very weird to reduce all of womanhood to a body part and then insist that is the way that we are discussed in polite language. That's my issue with it. I don't have any issue with anybody identifying as trans or anything like that. I don't. I want them to be protected. I don't want them to be hurt. But I do not like the language of reducing me to a singular bodily function, which is the reproduction of humans, which is something that has caused a lot of women's rights issues for thousands of years.
Right. Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Just because of that capability, our rights have been taken away.
Exactly.
You're seen as
Well, that's
breeders.
exactly,
You're in a harem. It's all this other type of stuff just for that simple body right.
Yes.
And then now we're going to identify people based on that organ's function. That's strange. That's it.
Okay.
But everyone should have rights and the ability to identify as to how they wish, and they should be respected and they should not be harmed.
Right.
All right. No, that was a great answer. I was gonna say something, but I don't really have to now. So that's good.
Well, I'm a birthing person, so
You're a birthing person. Yeah. Well, that's part of what I said that night, which is like part of the reason why women have struggled to gain equality throughout the millennia is because they are birthing persons, right? Because they're birthing persons, right? Mm-hmm. They don't get to go out and conquer the world the way that men do because they have to give birth to the kids and raise the kids, right? And so that
I am also
and I
yes, Virtuous.
Just to add real quick, this is what I hate to invoke George Carlin here, but this is like what he kind of predicted is like our society has just been riddled with like euphemisms, you know?
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. That great monologue that he did, it was almost like a beat poem. Absolutely. Excuse me. Okay, I got a few more super chats to do, and then we could wrap up. Virtuos, was that everything you got for tonight, bud?
Yeah, man, this ejaculating person is got to go. So
okay, all right. Well, good luck. Hope it goes well.
Bye, ejaculating person.
Bye, guys.
All right, we'll see you
Bye,
later.
very
Thanks. Okay. See, what do they call us? The most depraved audience on YouTube.
Sick, gross. I don't know.
Robert, thanks, Robert. Pakman runs from ghost in a maze, munching pills. Yeah, there you go. I like that. Nice play on words. Justin, thanks for the $5. Sounds like Pakman needs to start looking for another job. Boo-hoo. Thank you for the $5, Justin. But no, that's my point, is that he's fine. He's fine.
He doesn't need to worry about that.
You don't need no other job. He's going to take a little bit of a pay cut this month because he made a mistake that he didn't apologize for, and he'll be fine. He'll be fine. That's why it's kind of ridiculous to be, panicking and begging your audience and creating a coupon. I mean, could you believe that? Creating a coupon code, a special discounted rate. Enter cancel. I mean, Jesus Christ, man.
Also, guys, I just want to announce the new DueDissidence promotional.
Right.
It's
the
cancel,
Russell
cancel,
Dobular
cancel,
detransition fund. Yeah, exactly. Will Pakman a la TYT beg for money via email? I don't know. I'm not on his email list, but thank you, Cool Blue. Jax Page, thank you, Jax. Appreciate the $5. Thanks for watching. Pakman accused me of financially attacking him for pulling my membership in 2018. Literally did a segment about it. Is that real? I would love to watch that. Is that's got to be still around, right? He's been on his archives have got to be public. I would love to watch that.
Please send a clip of that.
Yeah,
please.
You got to send us a link to that. You I think you follow us on Twitter. Just DM me a link or email. DueDissidence@gmail.com. I would love to watch that. DueDissidence@gmail.com. Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for the $5. Thank you for not financially attacking us. In fact, if you don't donate $5 a show, I'm going to consider that a financial attack on our program. Yeah.
I would actually support everyone in the audience to financially attack DueDissidence.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
With money.
Yeah, right. Make it rain on us so hard. Bury us in money. There was a guy, I used to work at the Renaissance Fair, and there was this guy, he used to do the turtle race show. It was a great act. He was like a comic, and he would have a turtle race, which basically meant he kept a bunch of turtles in a bucket, and then he would lift the bucket, and they would like walk around, and he would bill it as a race. But one of the ways he hawked for tips, he would say, if you want to throw in coins into the circle, please don't, because you might injure the turtle. He said, paper money, however, is not a hazard to the turtle safety, so feel free to throw that. He was good. He had a good act going.
Said, true story. I will DM the link in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I would love that. I would love to watch that. That would be so great. See, that I would have fun ragging on him for. That we could have real fun with it, right? That's more lighthearted. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Jose Alvarado, thank you so much for the $20. I appreciate that. If it takes a little myth and ritual to see us through a night that seems endless, who among us cannot sympathize and understand? A Carl Sagan quote. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for the donation. Thank you for that. This was not a super chat, but this is one of I think the best and funniest chats of the night. Garble says, "This is what happens when the most boring man on earth does something interesting." Exactly.
Oh God, I'm so glad I wanted
that
to
on
so
the
far
other...
back. I didn't think I was going to be able to direct you to it. I love that.
Oh, but you caught it too while it
that was great. Yeah, I have it written down.
Yeah, well done, Garble. I appreciated that one very much. We had a couple more, I think, come in. Thank you guys for being very generous tonight. Are you the David Pakman advertisers who pulled out of his show and now you have a little bit of money to throw around and you're donating to us? That's very, very kind of you. I appreciate that. Zach Boyles once again. Pakman when SSRIs have their own radio show. There you go. See, you guys are having fun. Like that. Oh boy.
These guys are really truly
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, I mean, some people have been, found out the hard way about you guys.
I know. Most nights I'm down there. We get
right. Yeah,
down
exactly
there.
right. 15 years ago, George Carlin did not die. He passed away. Yeah, no, I remember that. That was June of 2008. I remember that. Carlin was a absolutely massive influence on me. I would love to do a more thorough piece about him, either a writing piece or even a show, because I don't think any human being has influenced me more personally or in the way I express myself, artistically and through this show than him. He was the GOAT, as they say. No question about that. All right. I think that is everything. I think that's a wrap. Thank you guys so much for sticking around. I'm going to plug the Patreon one more time and get our Patreon scroll going here. Tusker, you got to sit in more often, and you're going to get recruited to do one of these shows yourself. I know you are, because you get such great reviews. What?
I just want to be like a chat heckler, and then like every now and then like hang out.
All right.
Well, I'm not sure if you saw that my co-host Reef and we would love to have you on our show.
I would love to talk to people, because like Lord knows no one wants to hear my shit down here. Yeah,
she's
I would
Arkansas,
absolutely love to talk politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live in Arkansas. I'd absolutely love to talk politics with people.
Reef's from Florida, so you have that in common. So there you go. So like Tallahassee area. So.
Yeah, he's not that far from you, actually.
I just don't want to be recruited to do my own show. I just like supporting people that I like. That's what I like. All
right. Well,
but I'm happy to come on and chat with people every now and then.
Of course. No, that would be awesome. Yeah, no, Reef and Colin do a great show, and even though he's a backstabber and a traitor and a hater, Crab does a good show too, even though he's running against Bulla. Yeah, exactly. What, did you think I was being serious about something?
No, it's like where you going with this.
Yeah,
Crab
is pretty good too.
The things that I've heard about Crab, they're not out in the media yet. They will be discovered, and I think that my candidate, future President Bulla, will prove to be the front runner in this war.
Yeah, especially now that Marianne took a nosedive with the recent news this week. I think that leaves a real lane for extra Bulla.
She didn't take a nosedive; she took a nose charge.
Yeah, right. Yeah, charge. Yeah, exactly. Nose charges. They say, all right, there's the rest of our Patreon scroll. Tusker, you said you are down to chat and support. So those are your plugs, a chatter and a supporter. But Colin, get your plugs in before we wrap, my friend.
You can follow me on Twitter at Obona_Colin. You can find me on INN News on the Indie News Network. You can find us at indienews.network. You can find me and all the other personalities there. And I'm on INN News every Wednesday night, either at 8 or 9, depending on the guest, for our live streams, and then clips from the show throughout the week.
Beautiful. All right. Well, Tusker and Colin Radix Carter, thank you guys both so much. This was a great show. We want to thank Ellen Jimerson for joining us earlier. Thank you guys for help filling in for Russ. I had a great time with you guys. You guys are always welcome anytime, whether Russ is here or not. Even when he's here, you guys are always welcome to sit in. Always a pleasure talking to you guys.
Yes. Thank you, Colin. Otherwise, I just would have been left on my own with Keaton. And
right. Exactly.
I would have been like talking to David Pakman.
Well, I just knew because I saw you tweeting about both these topics. I'm like, I got to ask him to come on because I saw you on both of these, so I knew you'd be on fire, and you did not disappoint. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you to our chat. You guys are fantastic. We will be back here on Sunday at 7 p.m. with another regularly scheduled live stream. Patreon.com/DueDissidence. DueDissidence.substack.com. Once again, go to Dunkin' Donuts. Download the app, the Dunkin' Donuts app. Enter promo code DUD and get 10% off your first Tuesday curbside pickup. All right. Thank you guys all very much. You guys are a wonderful crowd.
Support DueDissidence. Support DueDissidence.
Yeah, exactly. We got your back. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Thank you to our co-hosts, our guests, everybody, callers. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Please clap.